Good afternoon, and welcome to the Appointment Subcommittee meeting for the meeting of November 27, 2017. We have 4 items before us on the agenda. I will take them as they appear. The first, we have a clerical change in the first applicant. It's not 140 Brad Street Ave, it's 62 Crest Ave. Is 17-392, the appointment of John Lopes, 62 Crest Ave, to the Zoning Board of Appeals. John, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please, after you hit that little button.
My name is John Lopes, and my address is 62 Crest Ave, Revere, Mass.
Okay, could you just briefly say a little bit about yourself, John?
Hi, I'm originally a resident of East Boston, lived in East Boston my entire life. Moved to Revere about 12 years ago, acquired some property in Revere, and what I do for a living now is I manage my properties in Revere, East Boston, and the surrounding areas.
Okay. Any members from the City Council wishing to speak? Council Vice President Patrick Keith.
Well, thank you, Councilor, and thank you, Mr. Lopes. I'm just curious. I tried to do some research on you, and I've gotten a lot of good feedback from people that may know you or have done business with you. But just out of curiosity, have you served on any other boards or boards of appeals like this, or any building boards around the state?
No, sir.
Okay. Any other directorial or positions like that with your in the private sector or outside of? I know you own some properties in the city. And they're well managed, but what about your business relations, or what types of do you work for an organization?
No, sir.
You're for yourself.
I work
self-employed.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Council McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lopes lives in my ward, and I vote in favor of this appointment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council Morabito.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lopes, what's your desire to be on the planning board?
Zoning Board of Appeals.
Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong line. I apologize.
I get involved with the city and working with the community to better the city. And the city's growing and it's changing, and I like to get myself involved.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other members? Councilor John Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, as you just stated, the city is growing. It's growing rapidly, and there's a lot of projects going on in the city that are helping that growth along. And certain projects are good, and certain projects, I think, are hurting the city now. And you will definitely hear me, if you are in fact confirmed, at your board meetings, because I have a very deep concern for the overgrowth that's taking place in the city right now. So I hope that in any decision you make, you certainly would keep that in mind. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilors wishing to speak? Hearing, seeing none. I will add my words in. And John, this is obviously a very responsible position based on the fact that it drives the conditions of our city in terms of growth in development. And it's a very important piece of our instrument in getting our community back on track. We have to grow our city, and same token, we have to be mindful of the fact that residents feel that there's a overcrowding and congestion in certain areas, and we have to be attentive to that. But you know, once you secure the position, you have a heavy responsibility to do what's best for the community. And I think the mayor's made a wise choice in appointing you. I will ask in a few seconds a vote of the membership. I'll just go by hand. All in favor? All opposed? It seems that you'll be voted out favorably this evening. There's no need for you to stay in attendance if you don't say so desire to do so. I've been told by the chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals that there's a great need for your presence on the board for the meeting on Wednesday. So I would ask that you stay in attendance, and the mayor will be coming up shortly thereafter, and you meet with him after we vote tonight. It has to go through the council for a vote the whole. But once we vote, you'll be eligible to be sworn in, whatever arrangements the mayor makes with the city clerk. because we do need you on board for the meeting of Wednesday this week, if you're
Okay.
confirmed this evening. Again, congratulations, do a good job for our city.
And thank you again, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for
It's been a pleasure
attendance.
working with all of you.
Thank you. Next is the appointment, 17393, appointment of Arthur Pelton, 26 High Street, to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Good evening.
And this is as an alternate member. Arthur, you live in one of the best wards in the city. Yeah, very happy to represent that ward.
Thank you.
So could you say a few words about yourself, sir?
Yes, my name's Arthur Pelton, born and raised in Charlestown, Mass. I've been now a resident for about 10 years now in Revere. Right now, officially living for the last 3 years at 26 High Street, as they so-called the haunted house. I'm currently working at the Massport Authority. I oversee the HVAC and the heating group. Prior to that, I was a property manager of Conley Terminal in South Boston. I managed all the containers. I also was involved with the community in regards to whatever we had to do in regards to building roads, et cetera, and waterways and things like that nature. I'm also involved in the community board for Massport for donations through the city of Revere I handle, and prior to that was Charlestown. I've been on and off the board for roughly about 15 years. Forgive me, I have a cold, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm so sorry about that. And prior to that, years ago, I've worked for the city of Boston under Kevin White back then, and I got involved with the community back then, got into my own business, and I used to direct and oversee all the plumbing and heating and work with Aspire Enterprise, and I used to handle their zoning documentations in regards to building then. I got into building myself and that group, and then from there, I got into Massport.
So you have a background on building, and you have a wherewithal as to what is needed and what is required, and I'm sure you have the sensitivity for the people's needs when the occasion so exists. I was one of the individuals that went to the forefront to have that haunted house rehabbed and saw the vision that what could be there, and I'm very thankful that
thank you.
it's attracted people like yourself to it, because it was pretty much left in dire need for some help.
Thank you.
The neighborhood at first was apprehensive, but again, on this side of the fence, you have to have a little bit of ability to know beyond the point of reasoning, so
Yes, I understand.
hopefully. Any members of the city council wishing to speak? Council Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sure that you heard my comments with Mr. Lopes
I have, John.
previously. And I will say this to you, your experience is well taken. And what really strikes me as very important to the city of Revere is the fact that being affiliated and being with Massport through different positions, you certainly know of the traffic problems that plague not only East Boston and Massport, but also the city of Revere, particularly. And it would be comforting to know that down the road, whatever may come before you, you certainly would consider, those problems that we're experiencing right now, because right now we're severely impacted by traffic, particularly along the Boulevard and 1A. And, most of this traffic is going not most, but a lot of it is going to Massport. And I hope on any votes that you may have to take as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals, you would certainly consider the impact that traffic does have in the city of Revere and other communities. Thank you very much, sir. Thank
Any
you,
other
Mr.
councilors wishing
Chairman.
to speak? Seeing Councilor Rotundo.
Hello, sir. How are you today?
Good afternoon.
Thank you for attending, and more importantly, your participation. Excuse me, I too
Yes, thank you.
have a cold. With that said, my one question that I have to you is relevant to your past work history, in which you had stated you worked for Mayor Kevin White. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And to what degree did you work for him, directly, indirectly, or in what type of relationship did you have with him?
With Kevin White, I was one of the originals. We were the founders of EDIC, which is over in South Boston. And prior to that, I was, at a very young age, I worked for the Boston Naval Shipyard at the time. And when I was working at the Boston Naval Shipyard, Kevin White and his staff were looking for a group that was associated with the Boston Naval Shipyard at the time. And he wanted to build, his vision was to build the city of Boston. And this particular area, he wanted to keep it, shall I say, somewhat in the shipping industry, which Massport got involved at the time. I wasn't working with Massport at that time.
Are you talking down by the Black Falcon Pier?
Black Falcon Pier. So it was Boston Naval, well, it was, excuse me, the Army base area at the time. So I came on board with EDIC at the time, and it was called the Original 13. I was one of the original 13s at the time. I was a very young man at the time. I was a master pipe fitter at a very young age, and that's why they brought me on board.
So my question is directly related to your relationship to Kevin White, not anything extraneous to that. Did you have a personal relationship with him at all?
Not really, sir.
And the reason why I ask you that is we currently have a developer that his son is actually the developer. And so I need to know ahead of time, because that could be a potential conflict of interest.
No, sir.
I thank you for your frankness.
Thank you.
Any other councilors wishing to speak? Seeing none, it seems, sir, like you're very much qualified, and it seems that there's talking to the chair earlier, he needs bodies on that board as soon as possible. We're going to vote you out. I'm going to ask for, in a few seconds, for a vote from this council, and then we're going to ask you to stay on later on tonight. I usually ask you, so you no need to stay in attendance, but when the mayor comes, he will meet with the city clerk and see if they can swear you in right away, because we need you to be seated on Wednesday night.
That's fine, sir.
Is a motion on the floor to approve? All in favor? All opposed? So ordered. You'll be voted out favorably to the subcommittee, to the committee of the whole this evening. No need to do anything else until you hear our vote.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations. Do a good job for our community. Next is 17408, appointment of Vanessa Bayasella, 10 Robert Street, to the Cultural Council. Vanessa, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
Vanessa Biasella, 10 Robert Street.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Vanessa.
I'm in a master's program at Salem State in History and Education. I'm involved in my neighborhood group. I have 4 sons, and I own a home in North Revere.
My daughter graduated Salem State, so automatically you've got everything going for you. Any questions for the membership of the City Council? Councilor Charlie Patch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've known Vanessa, got to know Vanessa the last couple of years, working with the North Revere Neighborhood Group, and plus other events up there, and whether it's a cleanup or anything. Vanessa, her husband Michael, are always there for support and for the people of North Revere, and I think she'll fit very well into this position. I know she's got a full plate now with studying for a master's degree, but I'm sure she always finds the time for the community. So I would hope my colleagues will support her tonight. Thank you.
Any other members of the council wishing? Councilor Vice President Patrick Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, too, like Councilor Patch, have gotten to know Vanessa and her family over the last few years. Always involved in ongoings with the City of Revere on a positive note. Volunteers much of her time, and definitely think should be a positive influence on the Cultural Council. So she has my vote of support tonight. Thank you.
Councilor Morabito.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I echo the same bonuses that my colleague said to you. You're very passionate. When you put your heart into something, you give it your all. Not only you, but your whole family takes part. So
They don't have a
you're
choice.
definitely a leader in that aspect of getting everyone involved. So I think you'll be an asset. So you got my vote.
Thank you.
Any of the councilors wishing to speak? Seeing none, I will say that Vanessa met you earlier this evening, and you seem to be a wonderful young lady, and I know you're going to do great things with the cultural society, and we're going to look forward to your many years of service to our community. And thank you for putting yourself out in place to help do public service. It's rewarding in the end. You'll see that in a few years, and congratulations. We will vote you out favorably this evening as Committee of the Whole. There's no need for you to stay in attendance because there's no urgency to get you placed or sworn in. So if you want to stay, we'd love to have you. Is there a motion on the floor to approve? All in favor, all opposed, so ordered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your attendance, appreciate it. And finally, 17409, appointment of Robert Bent, 103 Elliott Street, Disability Commission. Hi, Robert. State your
Hi.
name and address for the record, please.
What is it? I'm sorry, what is it?
State your name and address.
Robert Bent, I live at 103 Elliott Road in Revere. Been there about 4.5 years.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Robert?
I'm 44. I grew up in East Boston. I've been in the wheelchair my whole entire life. That's one of the reasons I want to be on this committee, because I just think that, you know, being disabled, whether it's in a wheelchair or it's other disabilities, they're important. And I think I can make a difference in not only in this committee, but in this community.
Well, the chair said he knows you well, and he recognizes the support you will add to the commission, and certainly it's a great thing that you're coming forward to help in our community, to do public service, which is a great thing to do for our city. And at this time, I'll ask any members of the Councilor Morabito.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to say I had the opportunity to speak to Mr. Bent several times. I know his wife as well. He expressed his passion to want to serve on the committee, and the committee seems to like him from when they interviewed him, so I'm in favor of this appointment.
Any other councilors wishing to speak? Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you, sir. I want to thank you for participating. Having your perspective is going to lend a lot of aid to Ralph, and more importantly, for Mr. DeChico to recommend you comes on high praise. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Any other councilors wishing to speak? Well, Robert, be prepared to do some work, because Ralph is relentless. He's doing a tremendous job for the disability and disabled, and he's really brought a new light to the commission, and I applaud him for his efforts. But he spoke to me earlier about you, and he was very anxious to see you on board, to see what you can do to help. And I think, again, like I stated earlier, it's an admirable thing to do public service, and you will find it self-rewarding at the end. You'll say, I made a difference, and just one little thing is a big deal. So congratulations. There's no need to you to stay in attendance this evening if you don't so wish to do so. We're going to vote you out favorably in the subcommittee. We'll vote this out in the whole this evening, and you'll be confirmed. So again, the mayor will contact you for a swearing-in process, but we will vote you out favorably this evening.
Thank you very much. And like I just wanted to let you guys know, like I said to Councilor Morabito, I look forward to not only working with Ralph in the committee, but I look forward to working with all you guys too.
Thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. All in favor? All opposed? So ordered. You voted out favorably from the subcommittee. That concludes the appointment subcommittee for the meeting of November 27, 2017. Thanks for your attendance.
gonna start. Good evening. Call to order the City Council meeting of Monday, November 27th, 2017. We'll all rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call of the members. Councilor Gedino.
Here.
Here, Councilor Guanasso.
Here.
Here, Councilor McKenna.
Here.
Here, Councilor Morabito.
Here.
Here, Councilor Novoselsky is absent. Councilor Patch.
Here.
Here, Councilor Powers.
Here.
Here, Councilor Rotundo is absent. Councilor Zambudo.
Here.
Here, and Council Vice President Keefe.
Here.
Here, quorum is present. Approval of the journal of the regular meeting of November 13th, 2017.
All in favor?
Public hearings, calendar item number 3. Hearing called is ordered on the repeal of an ordinance amending the zoning ordinances of the City of Revere, the definition of recreational marijuana facility.
May I speak from the chair? Permission to speak from the chair? Just to provide some clarity on this, we have a significant amount of public hearings tonight, so we would ask that when people come up, that they keep their comments brief, 30 seconds. On this particular public hearing, just want to make it clear that when the original marijuana legislation passed, the City Council acted swiftly to try to mitigate zoning issues down the road. So there was potential recreational marijuana zoned originally. So this would be to repeal that. So any proponents would be in favor of repealing the recreational marijuana zoning. Any opponents would be not in favor of that. So at this time, I'd like to just ask any of the public that would like to come up as a proponent for the repeal of the recreational marijuana zoning. Any proponents? Hearing and seeing none, I'm going to close that side. Any opponents? Any opponents? Hearing and seeing none, I'm going to close that side. Any councilors wishing to speak on this? Any Councilor Rotundo?
Thank you, Councilor Keefe. Have we received any correspondence by Attorney Zalesnik regarding the issues that I spoke about? Okay, because I didn't get it in my packet, so it's there.
For the record, the city solicitor did state, and this was on a separate matter, that there would be, they were not in the business of creating any form of a monopoly.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other councils wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none. May I also ask permission to speak from the chair one last time? So I'm very happy that we're going to be putting this up to the public forum tonight, and we'll be putting this into zoning subcommittee on the 4th, where after zoning subcommittee, it will then be voted on the following meeting on the 11th. And as I've mentioned numerous times, this was a great step for the city to potentially remove recreational marijuana from our borders, with the exception of the potential right by the medical marijuana facility, which we would not be impeding on. So I think this is a great step, and I appreciate the City Council's support. We're going to close this, and then we're going to refer to zoning subcommittee on December 4th at 4:30. All in favor?
Calendar item number 4, hearing called is ordered by the Board of Assessors relative to the FY18 minimum residential factor.
Any proponents? State your name and record, name and address for the record.
Dana Branger 40, Chairman of the Board of Assessors, 233 Proctor Ave.
John Varengian, member of the Board of Assessors, 84 Library Street.
Matthew McGrath, member of the Board of Assessors, 182 North Shore Road.
Good evening, Council. We're here to ask you to vote on the minimum residential factor, which will allow us to proceed with the setting of the tax rate. Historically, the City Council has voted on the 175% shift, which would result in a minimum residential factor of 0.894286. And what this does is it provides the greatest benefit to the residential taxpayers. So we're here for any further questions.
Okay. Just curious, any other proponents in the audience wishing to speak? No? George?
My name's George Anzoni, the Director of Finance for the City of Revere, 281 Broadway, Revere, Mass. I'm very much in favor of this adoption of the 175% shift because it takes the burden of the taxes off of the residential taxpayer. Something we've done over a number of years and something hopefully you'll continue to do. And it's the fairest way to really tax the properties that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Hearing and seeing none, I'm going to close that side of the hearing. Any opponents? Any opponents? Hearing and seeing none, I'm going to close that side. Any city councilors wishing to speak? Any questions from the city council? Council Powers?
This is certainly, Mr. President, this is something that we've always done in the past. It's nothing new. It does provide some relief for the people in the city that are struggling at this time because of the high cost of city government. And I would urge my colleagues certainly to support this evening and give some, continue to give some relief to the ratepayers in this city. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Councilor Powers. Any other councilors wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none, I'm going to close that side. Ask for a roll call vote.
Shall the city council adopt the minimum residential factor for fiscal year 18? Councilor Janino?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morabito?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky is absent. Councilor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Zambuto?
Yes.
Yes. And Vice President Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, the minimum residential factor for FY18 has been approved.
Thank you, councilors.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Councilor.
Councilor Janino, Patch?
If I could just have say a point of information, please.
Certainly. State your point.
I meant to say it at the beginning, and we just got rushed into the meeting here. But it's, I want to mention why my councilor to the right, Councilor Novoselsky, is absent tonight. It was due for his passing of his father-in-law, a World War II veteran and longtime Revere resident, Louis Garber. I'd like to stand and have a minute of silence for him, please.
Absolutely.
Calendar item number 5, hearing called is ordered on a loan order in the amount of $1.6 million for new fire apparatus.
Any proponents? Come on up.
Yes. Okay. My name's George Anzoni. I'm the Director of Finance for the City of Revere, 281 Broadway, Revere, Mass. This is a loan order for the purchase of a new ladder truck for the City of Revere Fire Department. This piece of equipment will allow the fire department to replace a spare that has been many years in service. The one that is in service presently will move down to that spare, and the spare that's presently in service will be disposed of according to the Massachusetts general laws. But I am in favor of this. This is also included in the capital improvement plan, which will be before you tonight. And we'd like to, I think that having this money pass would provide the fire department with a necessary piece of equipment for the fighting the fires and other things that they do, emergency situations they take in hand.
Thank you, Mr. Anzoni. Any other proponents? Any pro?
John R. Correggio, 30 Graves Road, Revere, former city council, retired fire lieutenant, 32 years. People don't realize the city's growing. It's very busy. There's a lot of medical aids, a lot of auto accidents in the city, and the apparatus does a lot of running, more so when I was on. So it's important that we keep up to date with the latest apparatus and equipment to keep the fire department intact. Thank you very much.
Thank you, former councilor. Any other proponents? Hearing and seeing none, we're going to close that side of the hearing. Any opponents? Any opponents? Hearing and seeing none, we're going to close that side. Any city councilors wishing to speak? Councilor Powers?
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I think this is extremely important that this bond authorization be passed. As you know, there's a lot of construction being done in the city with regard to the wood framing in some of these condominium projects, some of these apartment projects, and to not have an apparatus like that available would be almost criminal. I think it's something that we certainly have to support. And I think the other thing we have to do is see if we can find a way to handle our medical emergencies in a more efficient way rather than sending ladder trucks to someone that may be having some type of a medical emergency. And but again, I think it's so important that we support this, and I would ask, again, my colleagues to support this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilors? Hearing and seeing none, I'll offer my comments. Chief Bright updated us on the status of the fire equipment, and we could tell as a city council that this was much needed revenue, money to pay for the apparatus, and much needed apparatus. So I think we all be in favor of that, and this is going to go to a roll call vote. Roll call.
Shall the City Council approve a loan order in the amount of $1.6 million for the purchase of new fire apparatus? Councilor Gino?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morabito? Yes. Councilor Novoselsky is absent. Councilor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo? Yes. Councilor Zambuto?
Yes.
Yes. And Council Vice President Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, the loan order has been approved.
Madam Clerk, if I may also add, on a separate note, Councilor Novoselsky's father-in-law's services will be at 10 a.m. tomorrow at the Torf Funeral Home.
Calendar item number 6, hearing called is ordered on an ordinance amending the shade tree ordinances of the City of Revere.
Any proponents?
Julie Demaro Rivera on the move. We're just asking to change the duties of the city engineer, who is currently in charge of all shade trees, to the tree warden, and this is for a grant that we are putting in to become recognized as a tree city.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, we're going to close that side of the hearing. Any opponents? Any opponents? Hearing and seeing none, we're going to close that side. Any city councilors wishing to speak? Councilor Rotundo?
Thank you, Mr. President. I think this is a great move. It'll help make this process efficient, and I support it wholly and ask for a vote after every councilor speaks.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilors? So this was actually going to be referred to Legislative Affairs on the 11th of December at 5:30. All in favor? Approved.
Calendar item number 7, hearing called is ordered on a parity salary ordinance for employees not represented under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 150E, Section 10.
Any proponents wishing to speak? Mr. Anzoni.
Yes, my name is George Anzoni, Director of Finance for the City of Revere, 281 Broadway, Revere, Mass. This is a change in the ordinance that's usually done at the end of a contract period in order that the non-union members of City Hall receive the same compensation or like compensation as those who are in the union in their respective units. There's Unit A and there's Unit B. So we're looking for this ordinance to pass in order that the those units, different units, for those units that do receive the union contract, for the ones that don't receive it, can also get paid the same amount. So it's a parity. It's in parity.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Any proponents? Hearing and seeing none, we're going to close that side of the hearing. Any opponents? Hearing and seeing none, we're going to close that side of the hearing. Any city councilors wishing to speak? So we're going to refer this, Councilor Zambudo?
Thank you, Mr. President. Obviously, I speak in favor of this. This is, I think it's called a parity, or I think it should be called a Fairness Act. So it's whatever the semantics of it, it's about being fair to all employees in the city and not singling out people who happen to be in the union. So I support this wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councilors wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none, this is going to go to Ways and Means on December 4th at 3:45. Councilor Powers, it's going to go to Ways and Means. All approved?
Calendar item number 8, hearing called as ordered on the application of Bai Ping Huang, 28 Baldwin Street, Winchester, Mass., seeking permission from the Revere City Council to expand a non-conforming 4-unit residential use to a 6-unit residential use within the RB district at 6-8 Garfield Ave.
Any proponents?
My name is Biping Huang. I am a homeowner of 6-8 Garfield in Revere. This is a big building, currently actually used as a 5-unit for many, many years, for more than 10 years. And on the first floor, there's a big 4-bedroom unit. It has a 4-bedroom and 1 living room and 1 kitchen and 2 bathrooms. It's totally just in a mirror. It's a mirror. So that's a 2-bedroom on left side and another 2-bedroom on left side with 1 bathroom on each side. Currently, it's just occupied by a family with a lot of relatives. Currently, there's, I think, 2 families living there. Because in Revere, 4-bedroom apartment, the rent is relatively higher. So some family just, they live there and then they get other relatives live together. So I don't think this is safe for the kids, because if one family living there and they try to get relatives or friends coming in to live together, they always change this family. And then it's not, this kind of thing is not safe for the kids. And affordability, and if I convert these 2 big 4-bedroom units to 2 small 2-bedroom units, the 2-bedroom unit will be more affordable. And there are also more and more young professional family in Revere right now. They are looking actually for 1 to 2-bedroom apartment. This conversion will bring more young professionals in Revere. So basically, I don't need to do any big job. I only need to add 2 doors and 1 simple kitchen in 1 unit. So now separate the big unit on the first floor. So now then can become 6 unit.
Thank you. Any other proponents of the project? Any proponents? Hearing and seeing none. We're going to close that side of the hearing. Any opponents? Anyone opposed to this project? Step aside.
John Benetti, 34 Dana Street. Very familiar with this house. I grew up in that neighborhood. Number one is it's got no parking. They park on the sidewalks, but nobody ever tickets it because part of it's Dana Street, and because it's dirt, they feel they can park there. So if you go to a 6, we got a parking problem. Second, the house has never been inspected properly. The foundation is in very poor condition. The reason I know because I've been there all my life and I know people that live there. The Cobbetts owned that house at one time. It was in such bad condition, they put metal rods through it and welded it and pulled it back together. Now, I don't think it's ever been inspected since that was done. I'm not in favor of doing 6 apartments, mainly because I don't think it's safe. Secondly, there is no parking. We got parking issues all over the city. I've been noticing on Centennial Ave, Garfield, there's increased parking every day. There's more and more cars coming.
I totally understand. I want to just stick to this project here.
Well, that's part of the thing.
Correct.
Where are they gonna, there is no parking there. They park on the sidewalk, and this city does not tag them. And I can show them where the curve is, and I've told the girl, and I've told people in this city council before, it's illegal what they're doing, and this city never enforces anything, and this is why we're in the predicament we are today. I'm totally against this. Thank you.
Any other proponents? Oh, sorry, any other opponents? Any opponents? Any opponents? Name and address to the record, please.
Yeah, my name's Scott Kurtzer. I live at 24 Dana. 4 houses up from the house being talked about there, and there is a parking issue in that whole area. The lady lives across the street from me, is almost 80, and she loses her spot all the time. There's a couple other elderly people park on the street. They lose their parking spots. I don't think that you can fit any more cars in there. And the dwelling needs to be inspected. That's it.
Thank you very much. Any other opponents?
As it stands, that house does not have a single off-street parking spot.
Opponents?
Wayne Rose, 189 Coolidge Street. I just have a question. This says 4 units. The lady said it's 5 units. Which one really is it?
I don't have all the data in front of me. I think what's in one of the packets, it does say 5 units. What we have in front of us is 4, so I'm going off of 4 units, converting to 6. That's what we officially have.
So it's 4 units, and she already has 5 there.
To my recollection, that's what I was reading.
I think the building needs to be inspected.
Well, like I said, that could be a whole other topic of conversation.
What is it legally on paper? Does any of you guys know?
Like I said, I have 4 in front of me.
Well, what is it on the plot map? Well, it's on here.
Okay, thank you. Any other opponents? Any other opponents? Hearing and seeing none, we're going to close that side of the hearing. I think the potential developer wanted to speak one more time.
Regarding the parking, actually, I don't think this unit caused the parking problem in Riviera, actually. And currently, this unit already had 4 adults live there. And if I convert to 2-bedroom apartment, I will not increase more adults, will not increase more cars. So the parking problem in Riviera is definitely not caused by this house. Okay, and also, beside this house, we do have plenty of parking. Beside this house, we have a road already cut off that is already abandoned. And actually, I'm taking care of that cut off road. I'm plowing the snow over there. I'm taking care of the grass. So there's already plenty of parking beside this house. And my tenants squeeze the cars inside this part will not have nothing to do with the city parking spots. So this part, this belongs to my land. Okay, and beside my land, there's the cut-off road already abandoned. I'm taking care of it. I'm cutting grass. I'm do the snow plowing.
Thank you. And just for the edification, this is a public hearing, so we're asking for the input. But also, some of these there's not going to be a vote on this tonight, and many of these projects in front of us tonight, there won't be a vote on. And you'll be able to, if you have more detailed information, which I would definitely suggest that you provide, you should bring that to the zoning subcommittee when you do have that. So it's a little bit more easy for the,
But the parking issue has nothing to do with this house.
I understand. Thank you.
I'm sorry. You put anger into my house. I don't know why.
Okay,
You put anger
well,
of the parking into this house. This house has been there for many, many years.
Okay, so we
I
already
just want to make it
closed
smaller.
the opponent's side of the hearing. And we already heard
And
what
I
Ted
know
said.
none of them. I know no of them.
She was answering some of the
I
questions.
know nobody of them.
Okay.
I have nothing to do
Okay,
with it.
thank you.
Order.
Okay,
Thank you.
please address the chair.
I'd like to answer the question about
Point of order.
State your point. Come on up. And we're going to close that side of the hearing, as we've already closed the opponent's side of the hearing. She is the proponent, well, she is the developer, and she was answering some of the questions that were asked.
She can answer
That's
all she likes.
Correct.
It's a free country. That is still a city-owned piece of property. That is a road. It's never been paved. There's sewerage there, so she does not, it's not her road. There is a curve, there's a curve where there's a sidewalk there. You want to take, hey, you want to have a meeting, let's get down there and we'll walk this area and I'll show you where it's a sidewalk. They've been using it for years, not as a sidewalk. Now, she can say whatever she wants, and you people can do whatever you want, but this is good old Revere. This never changes. You make 4s into 6s, 6s into 8s. When are we going to stop this? These are absentee landlords. They don't care about us. I've been here 75 years, and I'm tired of it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Closing that side of the hearing, we're going to ask the councilors to speak. Please sit down. Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you. For a period of about, 8 years, I drove Garfield. I know the building very, very well. And quite frankly, it's historically been an issue with parking. More importantly, to the point that buses have had problems going down there. So whatever the discrepancy is, either I'm imagining what I went through and you're imagining what you went through, or someone who lives in Winchester has a different perspective than we do. Now, with that said, I would like to ask that the city inspector inspect that building. By looking at the building itself, it looks like it's out of code. It looks like the railings here are out of code. I'm sure Scott, who's a carpenter from, I believe, Local 218, understands the code better than anybody else. So if anything, it's out of code, and I would actually ask that the city look at this. More importantly, if we have city property that is not being taken care of, then we need to address that, because Mrs. Hung deserves to be serviced just like everybody else. And I believe that's what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. So could you come to the podium so I could ask you a couple of questions?
Yep.
So you've never had a parking lot, parking driveway for this complex?
I show the picture, in this part behind the house, we can park several cars there. We can park several cars.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
no,
do you
I
have a
welcome you
driveway?
to go to the site to check the parking there.
Do you have a driveway? No driveway?
This can be,
No, but you're parking on city property, right? Am I right?
no, you can check this picture. I already
Okay.
showed.
Can I see
Point
that?
of information.
Sure.
The property by the plot map, as stated here by the city of Revere, is no bigger than .0069 feet, which is approximately 2,602 square feet.
The good thing about this house, actually, a lot of people don't have a car living there because it's kind of like 5 steps to the train station. Yeah, Revere Beach. This is why a lot of people like to live around in this neighborhood. No car at all. So this is why I want to make a smaller apartment so they don't need to have a car. For the big family, they must have a car to hold families,
Thank you. Any other councilors? Any other councilors wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none. So this is going to go to zoning subcommittee. where there'll be some more details that will be discussed, and
Yeah, I don't mind the inspector going to
Oh,
inspect
excuse-
this house because
ma'am,
the
ma'am,
previous owner
ma'am, excuse me.
already applied for the
Ma'am,
permit.
please,
Yeah,
address the chair,
yeah,
and your turn is already done.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is going to go to zoning subcommittee on 12-4. All in favor?
Calendar item number 9, hearing called is ordered on the application of Leon Jespink, Brookline, Mass., seeking permission from the Revere City Council to expand a non-conforming 6-unit residential use to an 8-unit residential use within the GB district at 542 Beach Street.
Any proponents?
Good evening. Attorney Laureen Scatino representing the proponent Leon Gespens on his application to change the occupancy of this unit. This was actually just a little brief history. This has been an 8-unit building. It's been assessed as an 8-unit building. As a matter of fact, we have a certificate of compliance upon the purchase of this building when my client purchased it in 2014 as an 8-unit building. So the issue here is we're not necessarily extending, it's a pre-existing use. We did take measures to go ahead and remove any occupants from those 2 units just to keep it to code within the city. And at this point, the only relief we're actually looking for, because we are in a GB district, this isn't allowed use. The only relief we would technically need is parking. My client actually owns 536 Beach Street, and they would have the ability to park over there as well. Not all of the occupants of this building do have vehicles. We are very close to a bus line and public transportation. I know not everyone likes to hear that argument, but it is the case, especially in some of the smaller units. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Before we go to the questions, I'm just going to ask if there's any other proponents. Any proponents closing that side? Any opponents?
John Benetti, 34 Dana Street. I'm against this going to an 8. She just answered your question with the parking. This is the same thing again. We're going back to this parking. Beach Street is got no parking as it is now. It's full. You go there any time of the day, it's full with cars. Again, out of town, we're going to, again, bend to them. The city doesn't count. The residences live here all their lives don't count. When is it going to stop? I just don't understand what's going on here. And you know who I am. I've come to your meetings, and we're talking about something else, and we're not going to bring it up right now. But this all relates to this problem. When are we going to change the ordinances and do what we're supposed to do? 2 cars per unit, any brand-new buildings, and not only the brand-new buildings, I'm all in favor of the fire apparatuses, but we shouldn't be using wooden buildings anymore, especially with the kind of wood they use, because it burns quickly, and we're going to have deaths in this city. This city is not up to date with the ordinances from the state or from the federal government, and we should change what's going on here. Thank you again.
Thank you. Any... Thank you. Any other opponents? No opponents? No other opponents? Closing that side of the hearing. Any councilors wishing to ask any questions? Councilor Guanasso.
I think, listening to Mr. Benetti, I can speak as one of the members of the new program that we're trying to implement is resident parking for all. And Mr. Benetti was in the attendance, and he came forward with very vital and important information. He not only put effort out for himself, he represented a lot of the area in some of the ideas, and I look forward to his judgment in this particular matter, because he's put concern into this. This isn't just one night that he comes before the city council and he sees us on TV. This gentleman appeared at a meeting where there were only 6 of us there. And so with his concern and his input, I take that and weigh that very heavily. And what he states is very clear. Beach Street, as we all know it, is a very, very congested street, and they have limited parking. And, you know, we can't allude to the fact that the developer is outside of the city, but we certainly could be mindful for the fact that they don't have the wherewithal, they don't have the day-to-day living process of being part of the living in that community. So they don't bear the brunt and the pain of not only the residents on Beach Street, but all the residents of Revere will be experiencing based on the fact that if we keep adding to these major thoroughfares, we're going to put us all in trouble in terms of traffic. So, and I'm being fair. Every city and town in the Commonwealth has traffic. I mean, everywhere I went over the holidays, was traffic everywhere I went. So it isn't just Revere that has traffic. So, and there is quite a few cars. Households have several cars per unit, and that's thankfully that's the American way. But to suggest that there's some sort of hardship involved here, there's no hardship. This is just more profiteering, and and the person that owns the property, they're trying to gain more value for their property. But I think that we have to be mindful that traffic is a major input, and if there is no off-street parking to accommodate this, then we shouldn't even be looking at it.
Thank you, Council. Any other councils wishing to speak? Council Patch.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I just got a question for the councilor. You said he bought this as an 8-family. How many occupancy permits were issued?
So the issue is the building jacket within the city doesn't have much in it whatsoever. Sorry. The issue is the building jacket doesn't have much in it whatsoever. When he purchased the building, he was supplied with lead certificates that show 8 units and a certificate of compliance from the fire department showing 8 units as well. It is a pre-existing condition, so it's through no fault of my clients that he didn't realize that the building jacket apparently didn't catch up to the assessor's office.
Well, yeah, I'm no lawyer, but unfortunately for the owner of the property, he'd have to get 8 occupancy permits.
He's well aware. As a
And
matter,
I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest with you.
just a little bit of backstory. My client does have a property manager who's available 24 hours a day, just to answer some of the concerns that I heard from one of the counselors. So there is someone constantly monitoring this property. We are willing to be in full compliance with the City of Revere on any building codes. These units do have 2 means of egress, and everything has been here from what I'm seeing as far back as 1992.
Okay, I'll continue a question at the.
Thank you, Council. Any other councils? Council Powers and then Council Rotundo.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I think that in the past, we've taken 2-family homes, people that had basement apartments. We've had the apartments removed by the building department because they were not in compliance with our laws and our zoning. And I think to support something like this, or the person prior to you, would be hypocritical. I couldn't support that. I think that's been the problem in the city for decades, back to the 40s and the 50s, the 60s, taking 2-family homes and turning them into 4-family homes, taking 1-family homes and turning them into 2-family homes. It's wrong. And you get approved and you leave here, or your client leaves here and he goes home to wherever he comes from. And who gets stuck? The people that live in the city, the people that go to work every day, the people that pay taxes, and the people that come home at night and they want to find a parking space on their street. They want to enjoy what they have of life. This is wrong. And I'm telling you right now, I don't care what recommendation comes out of any committee, I will not support this. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Just to reiterate, we do have the ability to park at 536 Beach Street, so we do have ancillary parking.
Thank you for the clarification. Council Rotundo.
So I'm looking at the picture now of 542.
Yes.
I see, and there's 6 apartments in there now?
Currently, there's actually 8, but only 6 are occupied.
Okay, so where are the other 2? Are
They-
they in the basement?
They are not, they're actually not below ground basement, but I guess you would call them lower level units. They do have 2 separate means of egress, as I mentioned.
Okay, well, I'm looking at this, and there's no windows or anything in the lower,
There are windows.
Oh, there are windows?
Yes,
Okay.
they're on the side.
Maybe it's an old picture. So, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Rotundo.
Thank you. If my recollection is correct, in the back of the apartments, in the bottom part of the building, your windows are to the side, probably about 2 foot by 4 foot, if I'm not mistaken. I've been there as an EMT almost 2 decades ago. And what I would tell you is it appears that they turned that from a 6-family into an 8-family by turning the bottom part of the building that was above ground
Yes.
into an apartment. If you don't have an occupancy for it, then most likely the apartment with these put in illegally or someone turned a blind eye to it, which I'm sure Mr. Benetti is well familiar of. What I would say, we have to provide relief for people who have, through no fault of their own, been given the ability by the city at one time to build in a 2, turn a 1 into a 2 in certain instances. This is one of those instances where it doesn't fit that criteria, where a person willfully bought the property knowing what it was. If he's a developer and a building owner, which, if I'm not mistaken, he owns other buildings too.
He does.
He knows full well what he got himself into. And from my perspective, it just looks like he's just trying to get one over on us. Not going to happen.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Zambuto?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm a little disturbed here tonight at the tone and tenor of this. I thought the procedure is that we go from public hearing, short discussion, then to committee to work out what might and might not be the case. And what, I've been here a long time. Some people don't like that. Others do. The bottom line is, there are some instances that the criteria fits the situation. I'm not saying this does or doesn't, but I'm disturbed by the dismissal out of hand here. I don't think that's what this design is for. At least that's not what I've been used to over the past 18 years. We go through the process, we go to committee, we see what's what's the merits, what's the negatives, and then we decide then. Hear all the information, not the cursory public hearing. And so I'm just a little disturbed by that tone, and let's try to work things out in committee. Whether we decide in the end we can't support it, that's one thing. But to say, I'm not supporting it because something was done in the past that might not have been right is, I think, a terrible approach. I think we got to take each project on its merit and work from there. And that's my little spiel this evening.
Thank you, Counselor. Well put, and with that, I'll close the side of the hearing and refer this to zoning subcommittee. What I also want to bring up is, for the audience and the people watching on TV, is much like Councilor Zambuto has mentioned, tonight's going to be, there's a lot of public hearings tonight, and there's going to be a lot of passionate remarks, mostly by the public, which is this is the process, and that's why you see me up here. I'm playing a little bit of a referee. We're going to try to not take one side or the other, take all the information, bring it in, put it into certain committees, and then it'll get voted on appropriately. But our job is to hear the public input from the people that are for and against it. It's not just for one side of the room and the other. So that's what we're here to do tonight. So when I do hear your concerns, we do hear them, we understand them, but we have to keep them brief and we have to keep them professional and to the point. And that's all I'll ask. So we're going to continue going on with this process tonight, and we're going to hear a lot of good debate, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Calendar item number 10, hearing called as order on the application of Hammond Street Investment LLC, 111 Everett Ave, Chelsea, Mass., seeking permission from the Revere City Council to construct a new 3-story mixed-use development consisting of 22 residential micro units and 4 commercial units at 14 Hammond Street.
This time we'll open it up to any proponents.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Corey Rhodes. I'm an attorney with D'Ambrosio Brown, LLP, 14 Proctor Avenue in Revere. I represent Hammond Street Investment LLC and its principals Jamie Russo and Rick Costa. We're here tonight for a special permit to construct a contemporary 3-story structure with 22 micro-unit apartments and 4 commercial spaces. Apartment units are already allowed at this property. This is more about revitalization, redevelopment of a key downtown property. The current structure on this property is, for lack of a better term, it's a mess. A non-conforming structure that was added onto by prior owners, and we're looking to make a clean start and put a brand-new building right in the heart of downtown. This project also increases the commercial tax base, bringing 4 new businesses to the downtown area, activating the sidewalk for greater pedestrian use. This is also a transit-oriented property located next to 3 major bus lines, 116, 117, and 119. Just kind of want to reiterate that these are micro units. We're talking 290 to 400 square feet for the studios and 650 for the 1 bedrooms. There are no 2 bedrooms. There are no 3 bedrooms. These are all studios and 1 bedrooms. No big families are going to be renting here. That's just not going to happen. It's also about dedicated and professional management, landlords who watch out for issues and act proactively, qualities that I think you know these owners really embody those direct qualities. People that have renovated and improved countless properties in the city. We know this is going to subcommittee, like was just mentioned, and we're happy to get into more details there. And we think this is a great project for downtown, and we ask for your support.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Proponents.
Hi. Chelsea Johnson, 20 Hammond Street, a butter to the right of this project. I'm in favor of it. I think it'll be pretty good for the neighborhood. I've met with the developer. He seemed pretty amenable to some of the concerns that I had early on in the process, so wanted to give my support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other proponents?
Could I ask one quick question? Can I find out, is there parking for this new building?
There is none listed. No. That was a quick answer, right? No, any other this is for a proponent, ma'am, for proponents.
I found a big issue in Riviera because when you approach this big project, most of them are favor of it. But when we are
Point of
small
order, Mr.
homeowner,
President.
Okay.
like a 4-unit, 5-unit homeowner,
Okay.
we have a lot of.
Ma'am, you're way off the subject here. I'm going to ask that
Yeah.
you sit down, step away from the mic. If you are either a proponent
This
of
project has no parking either.
So if you are an opponent, please step up during the opponent process, ma'am. Thank you. We're not taking sides on one project against another. So any other proponents? Hearing and seeing none, I'm going to close that side of the hearing. Any opponents?
I just want to say, my name's Joe Coco, 36 Sears Street. When are we going to learn in this city? I mean, in another 2 years, the city is going to be like Times Square 24 hours a day. You can't move in traffic now. I've been on a few of the councils up here in front of me, but they say there's nothing we can do. There's got to be something we can do. Anywhere there's a lot, you can build on it. I've been in this city just about all my life. I've never seen anything like what's happening in the city now. And now I hear they want to come in with apartments in certain areas I'm not going to mention right now. How much it's going to be a burden on our school system, which a year ago was supposed to be one of the best. I mean, when are we going to learn in this city? When are we going to start voting these people down? All they want to do is come in our city and make money. Let's put an end to it.
Thank you. Any other opponents?
Philip Russo, 175 Ridge Road. I'm here for a couple of reasons in this particular project. First, I heard him say that this is a temporary 3-story building, 3-stage, 3-story building. Temporary permanent is, what is it really? That's first. Secondly, you're talking about 4 new businesses on the bottom, based right on the street level. We have no parking as there is right now, and that's been a major issue here. Over the last few months, I ran for politics here, for Ward 4, And I spoke to a lot of the people. And in speaking to the people that I have been in contact with, everyone says the same thing. We all have the same issues here. I live there. I live and drive up and down the street all the time. Anyone that goes to the post office has to go up and down the street. This is where this is. There's no parking. There's nothing there. This is a major issue. Okay, it turns into safety because people are trying to fight for positions. That has to stop. We have to do something to clear this up. Downtown, yeah, it's great to have more businesses down there, but 22 micro units, studios and 1 and 2 bedrooms, let's be real, okay? Studio apartment, that's 2 people. They're gonna come with 2 vehicles, or they're gonna come with 1? The single bedrooms, are they coming the same way? So we're doubling the people, doubling the occupants. Whether they're professionals or not, we're doubling everything. This has to be taken into consideration. Please, thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents?
Yeah, John Correggio, 30 Graves Road, Revere, former city councilor. I have great love for the city of Revere, but we can't keep going the way we're going with traffic, parking. It's a big public safety issue, and now the winter is coming, and we don't know how much snow we're going to get. And people can't even be able to park right now because they do business at the post office, City Hall. It's very, very congested. People can't even get around right now. It took me the other day almost an hour to get down Broadway. And the units, it's too big. The neighborhood doesn't want it. They've lived there all their lives and pay taxes. Enough is enough. Vote the thing down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric Lampadecchio, 43 Tapley Avenue. I do like the commercial component to this project, but I can't support it. The word micro means nothing to me. What I see is 22 units and 22 drivers. Thank you.
Good evening. Attorney David Sullivan representing M&R United Realty Trust in this matter. With regard to the obvious public, with regard to the obvious public access and safety issues, there are other issues before this board. And I'm going to refer the citizens of Revere to their own zoning bylaws and the purpose and intent and the language that is in this. This is a poster child for what's going on with regard to the zoning bylaws. The purpose and intent of the zoning of the title are to secure the safety and public welfare of the cities of Revere. You're supposed to take into effect the statute, Chapter 40, Section 10, and it's clear that the proponent in this particular circumstance hasn't met its burden with regard to whether or not there's any kind of a hardship and whether or not it would be detrimental to the community. I would yield to a gentleman who has lived here for 75 years, and it's pretty clear that this is essentially an end run around the zoning bylaws of the city of Revere. And finally, I think the council really has to take into account, whether or not, is this an attempt to give the city some affordable housing, or is it about profitability? Is it about land use, or is it about speculation by a developer who bought this property at foreclosure? Is this about a vibrant downtown, or is it about overburdening the infrastructure of the city of Revere? And finally, again, micro units is simply an end run to bypass the zoning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie DeSisto, 7 Reservoir Avenue, for 57 years. Honorable council members, I'm happy for this opportunity to speak alongside my neighbors in opposition to the special permit application. I am one of the abutters whose property directly abuts 14 Hammond Street in the rear. Yes, there are single-family homes on Reservoir Ave, literally right up against the proposed site. So before you make any decision on this application, I invite each of you to step into our backyards and see firsthand why we are opposed to this project, a project which the Site Plan Review Committee has already flatly rejected. You'll see for yourselves why this application and all that it asks for, if granted by the council, will prop open the door for a waiver of the current setback, density, and parking requirements that this site is subject to. All of it will cause direct harm to the abutters, crowd residential property, and will result in diminution of our property values. A special permit at this site will also open up a Pandora's box, impairing rather than enhancing the status of this and other neighborhoods in Revere. First, the proposed site was rezoned from GB to CB in approximately 1983. The neighbors were opposed to that change because of the height which the CB rezoning allowed. The neighbors lost that battle, but the intent and purpose of that zoning change was to maximize the highest and best use of commercial property located in the downtown area and to disallow residential development in it. Those ordinances relative to uses, setbacks, and parking requirements in the CB zone were enacted by the council to confer protections to homes abutting the CB district, to preserve quality of life in those particular neighborhoods while facilitating commercial development that would not crowd or build on top of abutting residential properties. This special permit, if granted by the council, will potentially pave the way to undo all of those conferred protections. Despite what this application indicates, a proposal for 22 residential units in a CB zone is not in harmony with the purpose and intent of the ordinances relative to the CBD. Throwing a few retail units into the mix just to make a proposal like this somehow more palatable is totally contrary to the very intent of the CBD ordinances. The highest and best use of properties located in the CB zone is not residential. It is commercial, and not token commercial development like this, but bona fide development, well thought out and meaningful, which will generate a solid commercial base without impairing the neighborhood. The CBD ordinances also exist to prevent the absolute folly of lot line to lot line development, a lesson this city learned the hard way in the aftermath of the nightmare change of use special permit, which was granted for the construction of 250 Broadway. For those of you who are not aware, that change of use special permit allowed an owner developer to reach over into Reservoir Ave, enabling him to build lot line to lot line. Right.
You're very eloquent, and I
Right.
love hearing you speak.
Right.
And I love talking to you.
Right, but that
keep it
relates to
point.
this. Okay, I'll move on. Enabling him to slice right into the heart of our neighborhood on one side. And now this proposal, which for all intents and purposes is a lot line to lot line development, threatens to slice right into our neighborhood on the other side. Secondly, the setbacks. The proponent states that this new proposal is, quote, substantially smaller than the previous. Ask yourselves, how so? The overall footprint of the structure has barely changed. No setback in the front, lot line to lot line on either side, but now with the 10-foot setback in the rear. 10 feet, that's it. That's no wider from where I'm standing to where you're sitting. And there's only one word for all of this: unacceptable. Such a footprint will result in diminution of our property value by entirely crowding and walling in the abutting residential homes, blocking all sense of open space and privacy, and blocking. The direct abutters on Reservoir Ave have the conferred protection of a 20-foot buffer in the rear, and the abutter at 20 Hammond Street has the conferred protection of 15-foot buffer on her side. And our full expectation is for this council to ensure by its action that those protections remain unmolested and intact. Thirdly, the height. The previous proposal submitted to the ZBA earlier this year showed an overall total height of 46 feet. I have the plan. Although the applicant may have shaved off one story this time around, the overall building height is still an overwhelming 42 feet high. That's only 4 feet lower than the previous plan. Such height will entirely engulf and crowd the abutting homes, resulting in diminution of our property values. Now, not long ago, another ward in our city had the potential of a 50-foot-high building being built in their neighborhood, and the councilor there most wisely, and for good reason, stated, I did not want a 50-foot building on the block. Well, neither do we over here in Ward 4. And it's as good as the same, because the only difference between 50 feet and 42 feet is this much, from my foot to the top of my hand and another foot. That's it. The new proposal is still ill-suited for the two tiny lots onto which it now seeks permission from you to be squeezed.
Mr. Sisto.
I'm almost done,
All right.
Counselor, and I have about 3 more minutes.
I want to be fair to the whole room. We've asked to only do 30 seconds because of there's many other meetings tonight. I think we're all very aware that
Okay.
you're very much
I'll
opposed.
move on. Parking.
If you can wrap this up,
I
please.
can.
And then we'll do this at zoning subcommittee as well.
Parking. What can be said about granting a special permit for a proposal that creates 22 housing units and 4 retail units but provides 0 parking in a neighborhood already at risk and overburdened due to the lack of adequate parking? How can anyone honestly believe that granting a special permit for this project will not create additional serious public safety hazards to pedestrians and vehicles using Hammond Street? How can this proposal even try to legitimately represent to anyone that it will, quote, not adversely affect the neighborhood, or that it will be, quote, a benefit to the neighborhood? The proponent suggests a workaround to skirt the mandated parking requirements by representing that the units will be marketed to tenants without cars, and that tenants will be restricted from having a car. But the tenant agreement that you have in your packets doesn't say that. It simply says that the tenant will not have a vehicle registered to the address. And there's a world of difference between having a vehicle registered to a particular address versus having a vehicle at all. The targeted tenants for this proposal are going to want and need a car here because this location, despite what everybody says, offers little by way of amenities. There's no MBTA subway station within walking distance. There are no supermarkets or shopping malls within walking distance. And that's what micro-unit renters want. They want everything in walking distance. They don't want to have to take the bus to get them to the subway station, and they don't want to have to take public transportation to get them to the shopping malls and the supermarkets. The proposed workaround offers little better than 0 guarantee that the development will not generate any need for parking. And lastly, this. This is what was in my packet. Maybe it's changed. The overlay. The information provided by way of this. Is this what you have?
We have it, yes.
Right, okay. I have
Point
one
of
more
order.
minute.
No,
Point
Mr.
of
Sisto,
order.
we've gone way past the allotted time. And I
Counselor?
think we get the gist. I think everyone very clearly gets the gist. And this is going to go into zoning subcommittee, and it's going to continue to be discussed. And I think we will be given more
For
ample time to
57 years, I'm going to finish it up
Okay,
in
wrap
one
it
more
up.
minute.
I can't say no to you.
promise
I
you.
can't
I
say no to
promise
you.
you.
You're too lovely.
This is woefully inadequate. All it shows you is the front of the building. Where's the information for you about the rear of the building? Do you realize that there are massive retaining walls holding up everybody's property on Reservoir Ave? This shows you nothing about the structure in relationship to those walls and how the back of the building is going to look, because trust me on this, the devil is in the details, and you have no details here. We're not opposed to development. What we are opposed to is development for development's sake. Indiscriminate development that's inappropriate, ill-suited to the site, and detrimental to our property values and the stability of the established neighborhood. And that's what we are. We're a neighborhood there. We're not a micro-unit, transit-oriented community. Most of the abutters have been there in excess of 50 years, others 20 years, and others are more newer homeowners. But we find ourselves in an environment where our properties, our homes, our quality of life is up for grabs by those who seek to maximize their profit by gobbling up properties and converting our neighborhoods into transit-oriented communities. And I'm going to say this one last thing. Each of you are Revere homeowners. Well, from one Revere homeowner to the next, put yourself in our shoes. How would you like it if this was going up in your backyard or next to you?
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sisto. Appreciate that, and I think that we all do that, so appreciate your words.
Motion to recess, Mr. President.
We have just a brief recess for 2 minutes. Councilor Rotendo, one brief recess. Thank you. All right. Our recess is adjourned. Recess is adjourned. We're going right back into the scheduled meeting, and we're still on the opponent side of this. Any opponents? Any other opponents? Hearing and seeing none. We're going to close. Oh, okay. And I do apologize, but we're gonna try and stick to the 30-second rule here.
Okay, this is it, right. Is it on? Listen, I'm 85 years old. My name is Gloria DePietro from 17 Reservoir Ave. Now, I'm not a tough person, but I know what's going on because I've been here for over 60 years. Now, the thing is, when these people come in and do something like this, don't you think they should meet with the neighbors and let us know what's going on first? Huh? Yes. All right. Now, the thing is, I am a direct abutter of this place. I'm a direct abutter. Right over there, with 10 feet between me and him, forget about it. I don't want that. I am definitely opposed, and I want to tell you outright that this is a disgrace to Revere, Mass. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Council.
Wayne Rhodes, 189 Coolidge Street. Just have one thing.
Ashley.
the footprint of the building hasn't changed, really, not much, as this lady over here said. Mayor Arrigo came out against this project himself, didn't he? In the last meeting when he was voted on this?
This is a opponent's side of the hearing. I don't know I'm not going to speak for anyone else.
Well, Mayor Arrigo came out against this in the past. Now, if you guys allow a special permit for this with 4 commercial units and no parking, there's something wrong. Thank you.
I'll make it very short. I'm a neighbor of Gloria DePietro, and we're very upset about this. Anything you can do to help us, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And just your name and address for the record. Name and address.
Joseph Volpe, in 19 Reservoir Ave.
Any other opponents? Opponent?
I'm an opponent. You know, I'm a homeowner here, and now I find as the landlord here, the water bill is so high here. I don't know why. And for that 3-unit building, for 3 units, the water bill in 3 months is $1,125. I don't know how to oppose this, but I'm going to go find any way that I can oppose this.
Any other opponents? Okay, we're going to close that side of the hearing. Any councilors wishing to speak? And just a reminder, this is going to go to zoning subcommittee on December 4th at 4:30. All in favor? Thank you.
Calendar item number 11, hearing called is ordered on the application of A. Chara Development, LLC, 30B Railroad Street, Revere, Mass., seeking permission from the Revere City Council to raise the existing non-conforming structures and construct a new 6-story mixed-use structure with 2 commercial units on the first floor and 145 residential units on the remaining floors at 320, 329 Revere Beach Boulevard.
Any proponents?
Good evening, Mr. Vice President, members of the council. My name is Attorney Lawrence Simeone, and I represent Achara Development, LLC, of 30B Railroad Street, Revere, Massachusetts. I'd written a letter later this evening basically asking the council to continue this matter to give us an opportunity to continue to work with the people from the St. George. On November 22nd, we had a really good meeting. I was not there, but Attorney Cipolletta was there, and my client, Mr. Philbin, was there, and it was a good meeting. We think that we can make some progress in addressing some of the issues that they have raised. I reached out to our state representative, who was also a resident there, and she tells me that she's not going to be around on December 4th and December 11th. So I think I'm going to withdraw that request for continuance and allow and ask that we just go forward. Ms. Vincent is a resident and is certainly a highly regarded member, and I'd like not to stand in any particular way of her speaking. That said, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go forward, if that's okay with you. Okay. So again, this Achara Development with Matt Philbin as the manager of the LLC is seeking a special permit in accordance with 1740-030 to modify a non-conforming structure, and also a special permit in accordance with 1740-030 to modify non-conforming uses. The property is 320-327 Revere Beach Boulevard. The property is located in the RC1 district. The property consists of approximately 1.6 acres. We have it as 49,118 square feet. It has 11 parcels of land. The property is presently improved by 3 non-conforming structures in accordance with 1708-530. They're non-conforming because they fail in some way to meet the dimensional requirements or the off-street parking requirements of the now current RC1 district. 2 of the structures are commercial. These structures and 1 2-family residential building are the only structures on the locus. The structures are non-conforming, specifically as to the RC district regulation for front yard, side yard, rear yard, and off-street parking. Those are the existing nonconformities presently with the existing structures. The commercial structures also are non-conforming. Bianchi's Pizzeria is a fast food restaurant which is prohibited in the RC1 district. The other restaurant bar is allowed only by special permit, and so those two commercial uses are non-conforming uses. Noteworthy is the fact that you cannot have a mixed-use project in the RC1 district without getting some relief from this honorable board. While in the RC2 district, mixed use is encouraged, the RC1 district, which is now being encouraged by the municipal planning people and so forth, and which we've adopted some of their recommendations, the ordinance just requires us to come to you, whether for a special permit or some other parent permit to get in type of restaurant or retail use. The property and the project as proposed by Achara Development seeks to raise the 3 existing non-conforming structures and relocate the non-conforming uses, establishing a new 6-story mixed-use property with 145 units and a fast food restaurant, and potentially retail space as well. The fast food restaurant and the restaurant / potential retail space, we're juggling that issue, will be on the first floor, establishing what is known as a streetscape, allowing the boulevard and that area to continue along with other new development to have commercial enterprises along the boulevard, making it an active and ongoing economic valid area. The particular mixed-use structure that we're dealing with will have the 2 commercial units that I spoke of. As to the 145-unit building, 55% of those units will be 1-bedroom and studios at a market rate of $1,985 to $2,185. 42% of the units will be 2 bedrooms at a market rate of $2,850, and 3%, or 5 units, 1 unit on each floor, is at least proposed at this point to be 3 bedrooms at a rental rate of $3,500. We are proposing 188 parking spaces, which gives us an average of 1.35%, which exceeds the 1-bedroom requirement in the RC1 district. Councilors know, of course, in the RC1 district, off-street parking is broken up. For a 1-bedroom, it's 1.25%. For a 2-bedroom, it's 1.75%. And for a 3-bedroom, it's 2.0%. In concert with our ability to meet 188 spaces, we will be putting a shuttle service in. We are very, very close to the transit-oriented district. We're practically right on the line, and there's transit-oriented systems and facilities available. We intend to put a shuttle system to make sure that our people, especially during peak hours, get a service directly to that transit-oriented facility. We're also putting in, I'll call them zip cars, or cars that one could rent by the day. So this particular demographics indicates that some of the people in this area would like to rent in an area like Revere Beach and a beautiful apartment, may look to spend more money on their housing and seek to reduce their expenditures on cars and car insurance. So offering the ability to shuttle and offering the zip car option will fill a need that they have. One of the key elements of the mixed-use proposal before you is that we want to not only establish a strong economic corridor, if you will, along Revere Beach, but we also want to keep a little bit of the history. You know, we've been fortunate that we've had Kelly's for many years, and in this particular location, the Bianchi Pizzeria has been around since 1950, back when Joe Nemo was on the Revere Beach Boulevard. They have stood the test of time, and we feel very confident that they will join with us. They're even here today to continue that long and great tradition that they have created and earned, and they will be on the first floor. The other issue will be that we have worked with the city. Our designs are based on recommendations that we've got from the planning department. We'd like to think that we've adopted as many as we could, especially with respect to the streetscape. But at the same time, you know, we expect, and I've told Councilor Powers this, that we expect to have another meeting with the St. George. We expect to make progress on some of the concerns that they have. And we hope that when we come back to you, you may see some significant alterations, especially to the elevations and so forth. I have with me this evening Rick Salvo of Engineering Alliance. I have Cube 3, the architect firm, and our capital partner, NRP, and Carolyn Mendel, who will speak to you very briefly in order to conclude this presentation. Mr. Salvo.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. For the record, Rick Salvo with Engineering Alliance, office at 194 Central Street in Saugus, Mass. I'll be brief here so we can leave the details, I think, for future meetings. But just to quickly introduce you to the site, I think everyone's pretty aware of where the property is. It's bordered to the south by the DCR-owned baseball field. The St. George is 2 buildings away from us. There's 2 multifamily structures that separate us from the St. George. This property is actually made up of 9 tax map parcels, totaling 1.13 acres. This building that's outlined here was the former Boulevard restaurant, of course, Bianchi's Pizza in the middle, and then an existing multifamily structure on the end here. As you can see, all these buildings are pre-existing non-conforming for side yard setback, front yard setback, and this particular building right here for rear yard setback. The proposal, as Attorney Simeone noted, is a proposed 145 unit multifamily building, which consists of 2 podiums of parking, which is pretty standard for the developments that have been constructed most recently along Revere Beach Boulevard, with 5 stories of wood frame construction above. We are looking for relief on the front yard setback so we can engage the streetscape, which helps the commercial component be able to function. We are also looking for relief on the side yard setbacks, which has a proposed 10-foot setback, and rear yard setback, which also has a proposed 10-yard setback, 10-foot front rear yard setback, excuse me. Access to the site is via a single driveway. Folks will come in off the boulevard, pull into the driveway, pull in here for the upper level of parking, or drive down the driveway to the lower level of parking. That's essentially the way the building lays out. Like I said, I think we can save a lot of the major details for subcommittee. So I think with that, I'll turn over to Cube 3 just to talk briefly about the building.
One of the things I was remiss, we asked for relief of a new nonconformity, that being the FAR, the floor area ratio in the RC1 district. Since the filing of the application, Mr. Salvo and Cube 3 have worked very diligently to reduce the certain aspects of the building, so we are no longer going to ask for that new nonconformity. We're withdrawing that request to exceed the FAR. We'll be building in accordance with the by right calculation established for the FAR, which at this point would be 3 times the 49,000 square foot footprint, or approximately 147,350 square feet of building. The project is estimated to be somewhere in the $50 million investment altogether when you add land costs, engineering, and construction. Let me introduce you to this young lady. She can take it from here.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Talia Canistra with Cube 3 Studio. So just quickly about the architecture of the building, it's a U-shaped footprint above the parking structures. There's 2 parking levels with 5 floors of residential above. The lower level is mostly below grade, so from the street level, you would only see the 1 and the residential above. On top of that upper parking level, there's a raised courtyard as an added amenity for any future tenants. At that ground level, we have a rendering here showing what that street edge would be. We really wanted to activate it, make that friendly street edge that exists, and just amplify that. So the residential entry would be on the corner to the left of Bianchi's, and that would have any amenity spaces and leasing areas for the residential building, connecting up to all the residential floors. And then there's also additional amenities on the courtyard level and on the topmost level, overlooking the beach. Just from an aesthetic standpoint, we wanted to give it a contemporary feel, really activate that edge, but give it its own identity from what exists now. So that's why we're using bold colors and giving it more of a stronger massing, that where it touches the ground and the towers go up on the corners. So if you have any other questions, I'm here to answer them, and thank you.
So at this point, just so the council knows, we do have a traffic study, which we'll be presenting to the subcommittee, shadow study, and we expect to delve in a little bit more detail, hopefully with some alterations that we successfully negotiate with our principal abutter, the residents of the St. George. Would go to subcommittee at this time.
Thank you. At this point, any other proponents of the proponents?
Mr. President, honorable members, James Cipolletta, 385 Broadway, Revere. I represent NRP. They're the equity partner in this development. They're a national developer. I think they're the 6th largest construction company and the 7th largest developer in the United States. With me to my right is Carolyn Mendel. She's a principal with the company, and she would like to tell the councilors, please, just briefly, why NRP thinks that this is a win-win situation for the city and all involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Good evening, everyone. I'm Carolyn Mendel, as Jim mentioned, VP of Development here in Boston. And my office is in Chelmsford. I am local. I've been here for many years doing multifamily development. I've loved Revere for many years and lived nearby for quite some time. And the NRP group is extremely excited to come into a community like this and have an opportunity to do a really thoughtful project in a close-knit community that is also so close to Boston and on the beach. So there's a lot to offer here. We're really excited about working with the city and working with the community members to put together something really great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents?
John Accorreggio, 30 Graves Road, Revere. I'd like to speak in favor. I think this is a very nice development, especially with the Bianchi family. They've been doing business there for over 70 years. Very highly respected family, and we want to keep the pizza place there. They've been known not only locally but nationwide for their pizza, and hopefully we can keep this historic business there along with the apartment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. My name is Attorney Jeffrey Rosario Turco. I'm here representing Robert Butchie Bianchi Sr. and his son, Robert Jr. It's a privilege to stand before you in support of the project on behalf of my client, Bianchi's Pizza. As has been said by numerous people tonight, Bianchi's Pizza has been part of this city for over almost 70 years. It's the longest continuously operating business on Revere Beach. I have fondly recall my days hanging out on Revere Beach and going to get a Bianchi's slice of oversized pizza down there. The Bianchi's family, over the last 15 years, have seen numerous developers approach the owner of this site and talk about developing it. And none of the former owners of this site, or none of the former developers have ever approached Bianchi's about keeping them there to keep this important Revere institution as part of our city. The current developer is the first developer that came and recognized the importance of Bianchi's Pizza to Revere Beach, and not just to the beach, but to our city. You know, Tony Bianchi started making pizzas, believe it or not, at Domino's as a young kid before he started out, and Bianchi's at one point had 3 restaurants on Revere Beach. They've been at their current site since the late 1970s. And so I think on behalf of the Bianchi family, we urge you to support this project when you send it to committee and when it ultimately comes back. But we also want to thank the developer for recognizing that when they come in, they don't just come in and try to knock things down and change the makeup and complexion of the community, but that they recognize an institution as important as Bianchi's to the community. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be heard. And on behalf of the Bianchi family, we urge you to approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Hearing and seeing none, I'm going to close that side of the hearing. Any opponents? Name and address for the record.
Deborah Habig-Schneck, Attorney Deborah Habig-Schneck, 350 Revere Beach Boulevard. Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, members of the City Council, I'm an owner of, since 2002, I own 2 units at 350 Revere Beach Boulevard, which faces the proposed building. I have my law office in that condominium based on the condominium bylaws and a residential unit. I have to object to this board going into private session and considering proposal of this structure. I object to the increased traffic that we owners have experienced.
Point of order for the record. Please let it be noted that this council has not gone into private session.
Correct, thank you.
Period.
At that point that you do, I'm sorry.
It would be a publicly aired zoning subcommittee.
Mr. Vice President, further point of information, we had a meeting at the St. George condominium this past week in the room they have down there, and there were probably at least 40 people that attended that meeting, along with myself and a representative that lives in that building. So there's nothing being hidden here, and I'm going to be very vocal on this, and I'm going to express my concerns right after when the council is called on. Thank you.
With all due respect, Mr. Powers, I was unable to be there because I left for the holiday weekend, and I don't represent any of those owners, only myself as a 2-unit owner. I object because of the increased traffic that we are experiencing and that I have experienced since 2002. I grant the wonderful job you have done on the beach, the sand, the improvement, the events that you have held have increased and drawn people to this town and have made it something. We can't yet compete with Hampton Beach in New Hampshire, but I'm hoping we get that white sand at some time. I am coming to object to the building of this proposed structure of 145 units. I'm talking about a building unit. I didn't come here to talk about Bianchi's. They're famous. We all go over there and buy pizza. But that's not what this is about. It's about a proposed structure. The problem with the traffic congestion, it's increasing and it's getting worse. We have the Atlantica built. We have the Ocean Towers that were to be built, but we have a different structure. In the summer, and starting usually in April once the weather is warm, if you enter onto Revere Beach Boulevard from Revere Beach Parkway after you leave the Suffolk Downs, you can stand, I can stand 45 minutes in clogged traffic trying to get up to Revere Street. Revere Street, as you well know, is a 2-way street. I use it both ways, but I never use it going west towards the St. Anthony's area, because you can sit at that traffic light for 35 minutes and not go anywhere. We will be adding 145 units. Right now, in the 350 Revere Beach Boulevard unit, which is known as the St. George, we have parking spaces for every unit and 2 for others. A few of the people have 3 cars, and we park on the street in the front on the westerly side. We know better than to park on the easterly side and get our cars towed. There is no parking now. Bianchi's has a driveway that allows people to go in the back. It is very congested in the summer, and you can wait 2 or 3 minutes or 20 minutes while cars are parking in order to use their facility. They're the greatest. I'm not here to complain about them. My concern is the traffic congestion that's going to increase with the placement of this 145-unit structure. So I would like to suggest that you stay consideration of this building. And I would like to suggest that you consider an engineering plan to develop a different traffic pattern that's going to alleviate the construction of the traffic we have right now, not even allowing this project to go forward until you have developed an engineering plan that can determine how we can relieve congestion now, and if you're going to put that unit in, what you're going to do with it. May I suggest, we have Oak Island Street. It's one way. But there is the possibility, with your planners and engineering forms, to remove the large concrete area that's in front of Kelly's, and I have to tell you, I don't know if it's city land or with the power of eminent domain, you could cut that area off and make that into a 2-way street so that people can get out of the Revere Beach Boulevard area, not only with Revere Street. And my second suggestion is, under an engineering plan, we never had a rotary put in, I guess because of the level of the land at Revere Street, but using one of the other streets that exist on 1A that could go across, maybe with a variance under the new waterfront park and a bridge, that would relieve congestion. I face the south and I face the entire west, having 2 units. When there's a fire call, the fire department, you can hear them coming all the way down by the police department. The police you can hear coming. And then we look out the window to see if our building has a problem, and you see the fire department trucks standing there because of the congestion, because of the beach traffic.
Understood.
People's lives are at stake. The buildings, investments are at stake because of the congestion. We need to consider this before we add another structure to
Understood.
this.
Thank
So
you.
I object to
Thank you.
the variances on the yard setback. We would like to see a setback further back, to the side yard footage setback, and the variance on the backyard setback. Thank you very much.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you. And any, yes, Councilor Rotundo.
May I ask the attorney a question?
Do you want to get to the questions when we go to the council?
Okay, we'll go.
We're just going to continue on with the
Yes, sir.
opponents. Any opponents?
Eric Lampedecchio, 43 Tapley Avenue. Pardon my raspy voice, I'm just getting over an illness. I'd like to commend this developer for reaching out to both Bianchi's and the residents at the St. George building. That's very noble of them, and I appreciate them doing that. However, I must stand with my friends at the St. George building in opposition to this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents? Just want to remind everyone, let's try and stick it to, keep it under 30 seconds. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joan Linzillo-Hassey. I live at the St. George. I have a couple of points that I think should be brought out as far as what the application has here and what was stated here tonight as far in their conflicts and some in the information. On page 8 of their application for the special permit, they indicate here under number 14B, it says the facilities will not overcrowd the existing parcels in buildings thereon, while by seeking side setbacks, rear setbacks, and front setbacks variances, I beg to differ with that. And on number 4 on that same page, it says that the use as developed will not adversely affect the neighborhood for the following reasons. A, sentence 2, it says, it will not substantially generate residential traffic or activity. That, to me, is a blatant misconception as far as what we're hearing for tonight. And the only thing, too, is the number of parking spaces. They indicate here that they're going to provide 188 spaces. In their development drawing that we had to go to the city to get a copy of, it indicates that they're going to have 174 spaces, and that equals 1.20 parking spaces. That is below what is required for single-family, a one-bedroom house, not a two-bedroom, not a three-bedroom. It provides for no parking, as is indicated, for visitors, and it does not provide parking as indicated for the definite 2 possible for commercial establishments. So those are areas that are going to significantly impact the development again, as is. Again, they did come and meet with the St. George. They took away a lot of information, a lot of the concerns that a lot of the residents had, and we're encouraged that they want to meet again with us. But at this time, these conflicts in the written word and the spoken word tonight speak volumes. And I really caution you or implore you to hold any type of decision until these are clarified in one way or another. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other opponents?
Ralph DeChico, 49 Washington Street. I am against this proposal. Number one, I have a feeling that they reached out to Bianchi's because they know the feeling of this city does not want apartment buildings this size, and they're trying to pacify us by reaching out to Bianchi's to saying that they're going to leave them there. The beach cannot afford another big development like this. You cannot get down Revere Street. We fought for where the surf club was and try and stop that, and that was smaller. You cannot get up and down Revere Street. God forbid, like somebody said, if we had an emergency, fire apparatus, police apparatus cannot get down there. They say that they want to make an amenity for the city and help beautify the beach there. This is a detriment to the city. We cannot afford to put an apartment building there. Nevertheless, they have 1-bedroom studios, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. Our school departments cannot handle that. The Paul Revere School right now is already 150 kids over capacity. Where are these kids going to go? You can't tell me that they're not going to have children coming in there. You're going to have apartments that are going to be $3,500, $2,500. You're going to have families in there. No matter what they try telling you that they're not, they are. They're going to have families in there. My question is by right, can they put an apartment building there? Or is this something that we can stop by not doing the variances? If they had the thing that they wanted to do something for the city, I would say that an apartment building that's not the right place. That's right at the end of the boulevard, and right now it's congested. Could you imagine how much congested it's going to be with that being right at the end? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents? Representative Vincent?
Hi, Rosalie Vincent, 350 Revere Beach Boulevard. I'm not opposed per se to responsible development, but I am opposed to overdevelopment. I have some issues with the proposed project. First being, and you've heard it all night long, is parking and traffic. There's certainly not enough parking for 145 units. Plus the fact that 145 units, I believe, is way too large for the site. Just for comparison, I didn't measure with a ruler, but I did a walk through. The Atlantica is similar in size to the proposed site, and the Atlantica has 81 units. So 81 units on a similar size is responsible development, is something that enhances the city. I have a problem with 145 units. I think that's way too many units for such a small area. Front and back setback, it is right on the street. The city requires a 20-foot setback, yet this development is directly on the street. I think that could pose an issue. Rear setback is 30 feet. This development wants it to be 10 feet. I think the time has come that we really need to put in perspective what is really good for the city. And I, too, love Bianchi's Pizza, but I don't think we should be granting development based on the fact that we like Bianchi's Pizza. Thank you.
Any other opponents?
Again, I'm a landlord, small landlord of 6 to 8 Garfield. And when somebody mentioned I'm a developer, I want to say I'm only a small landlord. I'm not a developer. And I'm here oppose any big project in Revere. And basically, because I feel it's my first time to attend a hearing in Revere, and I feel people hate small landlord like us. And when I mentioned, I only need add 2 words in my apartment.
Ms. Wang, I'm going to ask that you step away from the mic. We understand you're opposed, and you seem to be settling some sort of personal vendettas. You came here before us for a special permit, and you went to a city council hearing. That's it. Nothing has been voted on, and you're acting very improperly and emotionally and totally unprofessional for a potential developer, wannabe developer in this city.
I'm not a developer.
So I'm asking you to step down from the
Sorry.
mic. I'm going to ask that you leave the council chambers immediately, or we're going to have to contact the police to have them remove you. Step away from the
I'm
chamber.
worried about a big
Ma'am,
project will have a
step away from the
bigger water
Ma'am,
consumption.
please leave the chambers. Please leave the chambers. Please leave the chambers before we call the police. I shut it off over here. Any opposed? Any opposition? Wow.
Wayne
Well, those
Rose,
nice, huh?
189 Coolidge Street. I have a couple of questions. With the ballpark on the side, how much room is there going to be in between that building and the ballpark? And is there any parking for this ballpark?
Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you. My understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Rosalie Vincent is going to be, because I have asked the developer about fixing the park. Is it my understanding that you'll be securing some state funding to fix that park?
We have talked with the state delegation and with DCR, and we're talking about putting some investments into the park. As of right now, we don't have anything concrete. It's all still in the talking stage, and I have not spoken or made any arrangements with anyone other than talking to the state delegation.
So I have asked the developer to consider actually fixing the park and so forth, and it was intimated to me that you had proposed possibility of the state doing anything. Would you be opposed to the developer doing anything instead of using state and people's money?
Well, I don't think that's actually a fair question. Again, it's like keeping the Yankees. So are you suggesting that instead of me being opposed to such a large development, that it would be okay then to have the developer put in a park and that would compensate?
Well,
I'm
that's
not
part
quite
of
sure
it.
what you're
Well, again, that's part of mitigation. We would ask the developer to mitigate due to
And
part
would
of the
they
issues.
mitigate parking?
For example,
So-
please, if I can speak.
Sure, I'm sorry.
For example, like buying a parcel of land. next to the property in lieu of support, things of that nature. But with that said, you know, there are a whole bunch of components to the issue. So whether that be putting Bianchi's in there, buying a piece of property to help expand the property to add parking, or for that matter, fixing the park to help ingratiate the area, no different than what they had did at Shaw's and things of that nature. It's part of the process.
I can't imagine what property that they would be purchasing for parking. That area, I don't know if you're familiar with that area. That area is so congested right now.
I'm actually very familiar with it because in the back, the state hasn't cleaned up the area in the back there off of that of the city regarding the, not the wetlands, but actually the aqueduct that carries water back and forth that prevents the storm surge. You can ask Joe because I spoke to him about it recently.
Okay, I will
You know
do
he's the
that.
boss on
I will
that.
do that, but I don't believe that whether or not they improve the park should be a reason to grant all kinds of special variances. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Vincent. Mr. Rose, the exact setback to the park is, I want to say 20, is it 20 feet? You want to do like Mrs. Simeoni?
And they're looking for a side setback, aren't they? So they want to get close?
To address Mr. Rose's question, some of the existing structures have setback deficiencies, they're non-conforming. So we're, again, asking that we replicate some of that. The side setback against the park would be 20 feet, and we're proposing 10 feet. Anybody does a little research of construction in that area will find that, I believe it's the Atlantica, has approximately a similar distance from St. George and a similar distance in the rear. Clearly, one of the reasons why developers do this is in order to keep the building low and rather than a high-rise building, which would impact, in this case, many, many people in the St. George who own very expensive units on the left-hand side of the structure.
Thank you. Mr. Rose?
So then they want to bring it to 10 feet, which if an ambulance has to get down there to tend to somebody in the park, they're going to have trouble turning around, or any fire apparatus that pulls into that place. They're going to have to sit on the beach and walk down into the ball field? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know the egress of the park is on that side, but the entrance is on the back end, I believe, but I think I understand your concern with the setback.
On the right-hand side, if you look at the schematics and the site plan, we have about 20-some-odd feet. We have to create a opportunity for city vehicles, the Department of Public Works vehicles, to get behind the site, and the superintendent has looked at that. He hasn't approved it, but we have to, it's not guessing. We have to make sure that someone can get in. If they can get in through that site, they certainly can come around the back and make access to any park that might be available, if in fact the park doesn't have any access on their own.
Thank you for the clarification.
Only one more question. There's 188 parking spots. That include Zip Cars parking spots? That's what you said.
Yes. The 188 parking spaces does not include the Zip Car spaces. Those will be in the commercial area.
Thank you. Any other opposition? Anyone opposed to the project? Hearing and seeing no others, we're going to close that side of the hearing. Councilors wishing to speak. Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do represent the area. I'd just like to bring everyone up to a little enlightenment here this evening. We had a proposal for the Cove site from a development company, 73 units. I was adamantly opposed to it. It was turned down, and they can put in 51 units as a matter of right. I had 2 subsequent meetings with MEPA and DEP, and I voiced my concerns very strongly that I did not want that building built there at that size. We are right now waiting to hear I haven't received any final notice. But I bring that up because we're at a bottleneck on Ocean Avenue. 51 units coming up Revere Street. Another 145 or 44 units proposed on the boulevard. 61 of those units, according to the math that the attorney gave us, 42%, I believe he said, would be 2- and 3-bedroom units. We just heard a comment here this evening that the Paul Revere School is overcrowded. And I believe that because I was at the Veterans Day ceremony and you couldn't walk in there in the auditorium. Now, how many kids do you think would come out of 61 units? I dare to say probably 40 or 50. Bianchi's Pizza, great institution. I've eaten there many times. Love the place, probably the best pizza around. But you know something? That's no reason to allow a permit for 145 units by this city council or anybody. This doesn't just affect the St. George. Talk to people down in Oak Island. Talk to people in the Point of Pines. Talk to people at the other large units on the boulevard. I got the message. I got the message during the last election. They don't want it. My advice to the developer, do what you can as a matter of right. Keep Bianchi's Pizza there. Put in a nice restaurant similar to what the Brown Jug did in Chelsea. They moved from one location, they have a nice restaurant now, and they serve more than pizza. Put a nice convenience store right beside it. You really want to do something for this community? Start right there. I think it would be a great thing. But again, do as you can as a matter of right. 144 units or 145 units would devastate the traffic pattern in the morning, perhaps even in the afternoon, particularly on a hot summer busy day. We just voted this evening, we're going to be voting for a new ladder truck, I think $1.6 million. We're going to need that ladder truck, and we're probably going to need another ladder truck before all this is over. We've got a fire station down on the northern end of the beach that's closed. And as a matter of fact, it's deteriorated so much that we're probably not going to need $1 million to rehab it, but probably $2.3 or $2.5 million to rebuild a new fire station down there. And that's something I've suggested to the mayor, and I hope he's listening. I'm sure he is. This is a project, the developer is a nice guy. He has a hotel on American Legion Highway. Did a great job turning that building around. But you know something? This is a different situation. I wish I could, in all good conscience, support this. If it was something as a matter of right, with maybe a small variance or something like that. But I can't support this. And I'm letting my colleagues know tonight that I will not be supporting this. It's something that's too overpowering for that end of the boulevard. Drive up from the Point of Pines on a hot summer night, and when you get to Revere Street and Ocean Avenue, that hill that goes up where you can go west or you can go south. Think of how you sat there for a half an hour or 45 minutes just to get to that point. It's 100% wrong, and I cannot support this, and I will not support it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilors, any other councilors wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none, we're going to ask. Councilor Zambuto? Councilor Rotundo?
Thank you.
Raise your hand.
I'm hearing that this property is too big for the parcel that it's on. One would make that same statement based upon the size and the current units at the St. George. One could also make the same commentary, which was widely supported, for the beach house down the other end of Revere Beach. Some people say, the heck with Bianchi's. There are some economic situations that go beyond what is being seen here regarding Bianchi's. In fact, I've been involved with that because I believe saving Bianchi's is important. You know, what people also don't understand is that currently that entire site is not conforming, meaning it is incorrect. The sides, the back, everything, it's incorrect. It's not proper. I do have a question for the attorney. What could be built currently as a matter of right? Meaning you don't need to come to the council and you build it the way it is. Mr. Simeone.
Okay. As to the amount of residential units, if we were to build within the setbacks, probably, have to go as high as 12 stories. We could build 187 units, maybe even 200, depending on the number of square foot per structure. People talk about the Atlantica. The Atlantica is condos. They're bigger units. Condominiums are always bigger units than rental units. So it's like sleight of hand. Oh, you've got 50 units, but the units are 550 square feet or 750 square feet. So whatever. The other thing you have to understand is you cannot do mixed use by right. So somebody cannot build by right the mixed use concept that you have there now.
Now, is that why you're here? Because you want to add commercial space?
We do. We want to do, it's been recommended by the planning department. We agree wholeheartedly that to make Revere Boulevard a vibrant streetscape, that we're one of a group of, I understand JBX just came and they're offering commercial on the first floor. This is something the gentleman called Blackstone developed as a concept many, many years ago, and one after another, Councilor, towns and cities like Saugus are adopting the idea of commercial on the first floor and residential on the other.
It's what they do in California and Europe, but that said, my other question is, as I had spoke to as a matter of right, if you had to walk away and not do the Bianchi's, you could build this at, 180 units, you said?
About 187 to 200, again, depending on the size.
No, I've actually looked at the developer's equity partner, which, by the way, I'm still waiting to hear from Suffolk Downs, him, to provide that to us. So knowing the equity partner and knowing the developer, people have said, well, he can't go up to 12 stories. He'd never pay for it. Well, I would like to tell you, I'm not sure about that, but that's not the issue here. For me, the issue is, what are we doing? If we're going to stop people from developing, I want to ask you why you didn't support me in my moratorium 4 times. I want to know. I want to know every single person out there that is in politics, why didn't you support it? Why did you support Shaw's? Where were you when Shaw's was being built? Where was your voice? I want to know. So why is this subject different than the others? I want to know from every single person why a change of heart. Why is it okay to build 195 units at Shaw's and not here? I want to know. Excuse me.
No, okay, hang on.
I'm
I
addressing the
appreciate, it was a
council.
rhetorical question. And I'm gonna stop that there. It was a rhetorical question. I appreciate you getting up wanting to answer it. I think there's a lot of people that want to answer it. Counselor, I appreciate your information.
And we should go into a moratorium because, with all due respect, Mr. President, we have 11,000 units that are possibly going to be coming over at Suffolk Downs.
Correct, and it's a whole nother subject. Tonight, we're talking about this one project. Let's continue, let's stay
Well,
on
no,
this one project.
they all come down to zoning.
Correct.
That's what this comes down to, folks.
Let's stay on this one subject.
If I could, Mr. President.
Councilor Zambuto, did you have any comments?
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't want to be a one-trick pony, and I don't want to talk about procedure up here, but I have to do it because lately we've been straying from procedure, and it bothers me. I haven't decided which way I'm voting on this project because I don't have all the information. I never make a snap decision because there may be some neighbors that have problems with it. I've taken a lot of heat up here, and I voted for Shaw's. I made it a better project than it was. I took a project that was a decent project. I downsized the building, cut a floor off the building, put language in the special permit that there would never be anything but a hotel. The hotel could never be converted. And I got $100,000 in mitigation money for Donnelly Square. Now, I don't know what's available for mitigation money in this project, and I don't know that the neighbors at the St. George will ever be satisfied with the end project. But that doesn't mean I won't vote for it. It doesn't mean I will vote for it. If it's a good project and it's good for the city, I will vote for it. But the bottom line is here, the procedure is set up here, so we get the basics. We've gotten the basics here. We've heard from a lot of the opponents what their concerns are. Some of that may be mitigated by the developer. Some of it may not be able to be mitigated. The bottom line is, in the end, I'm going to decide, is this project better for the city of Revere or not? Now, if I could have stopped the project up the other end of the beach, I thought was too big. I don't know how many units are up there, but I know one thing. It's certainly a lot more than 145 units.
Point of information, Mr. President. I can tell you how many units are up there.
How many?
234 units, and 60-some-odd% are one-bedroom and studios. And the guy that's doing it is a great developer. He did the Children's Satellite Hospital in Waltham. Thank you.
Thank you for the point. 265 units.
Councilor Zambudo, I think we get you the gist, and you're right when you're talking about the form of the meeting and what it should and should not be. Any further comments on this subject?
No, I think that
Everyone's gotten a little emotional tonight, wouldn't you say?
I would say
Yeah.
that.
All right, so let's finish it up. How about we wrap this one up?
Tensions are awfully high here. But the bottom line is, let's get all the facts, let's weigh the pros and cons, and let's make an informed decision, not a snap decision, not a quick, no, I'm not for this because some neighbors are not for it, or no, I'm for it because the neighbors are for it. Yes, I'm for it because the neighbors. No, let's do what's best for everybody, for the entire city, for all the taxpayers in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I was going to save my comments for the committee meeting, but I just want the people out there to know how I feel. I was one of the three to vote no for Shaw's. I backed the Ward 1 councilor, and I backed the Ward 5 councilor when they wanted to put apartments on the riverside in the neighbors I backed. I've been pretty consistent with how I feel about the buildings. But when it comes to the Boulevard in Ocean Avenue, I feel it's all councilors, all wards, all of my constituents in Ward 6 is, that's their beach. The same as it's for Ward 4 and 3 and 2 and 1. I feel that as most, when you go away on vacation in the ocean, most of the buildings are either residential or rentals or condominiums. And I kind of I go along with that feeling. I think they tend to stay occupied longer and don't turn into Section 8. And I feel here at this site here that I'm undecided on how I'm going to vote, but I know the owner from what he did at the hotel on American Legion Highway. as a police officer, I spent many time in that hotel before he bought it and turned it into a first-class hotel. I'm waiting to see. Hopefully, we can come with an agreement with the, if the neighbors of the St. George, if they can work out some kind of agreement, we come out with a traffic plan. This is something that can be worked out. I think we should give them time, and when it's all said and done, we'll take our vote. But hopefully we keep the hostilities down, and we can get down to work and maybe accomplish something here. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Councilor. And Councilor McKenna.
Point of information to my counselor on my left-hand side. So I sit here and I'm very emotional because for a couple of times I've heard that you negotiated for $100,000 for Donley Square, where it was me, and I've kept mute about this, that I negotiated for $100,000 for Donley Square and gave it to you because I was voting no for it. And I'm just upset that you keep saying that you negotiated it, the $100,000, where I gave it to you, where a lawyer told me to. And I know. I'm very upset.
I'm not sure with this. Let's take this off of this here. There's no bearing on this conversation. Correct.
Mr.
Great.
This
Any other councilors? Yes.
I say we put this in zoning
Councilor Trujillo.
and continue the conversation in zoning.
Yep, we're gonna ask that it's gonna be going to zoning subcommittee regardless, so all in favor of zoning subcommittee? Thank you.
Don't forget that. Don't forget, because it's the truth.
Madam Clerk? Madam Clerk, I ask that we take the mayor's communications out of order. Permission to suspend rules? Suspension of rules?
Calendar item number 18, communication from the mayor regarding the City of Revere FY18 to FY22 Capital Improvement Plan.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. As the City Council is well aware, our last meeting, I gave a little bit of a preview of the capital improvement plan that we would be putting before you tonight. And in that capital plan, we plan to invest $25.9 million in capital improvements citywide. And this figure does exclude a number of things, including a new high school, which we so sorely need, and a new DPW building that we so sorely need. But aside from those two items, we wanted to make sure that we put together a plan that strives to balance the many significant and competing infrastructure needs that our city has, including and not limited to city facilities, parks, open space, roadways, sidewalks, school facilities, and vehicles and equipment. The outline that you'll get and the presentation that you will receive from the Collins Center tonight will be a lot more detail to the preview that I gave you earlier a couple of meetings ago. So the fact is, this is going to be a 5-year rolling plan. So you'll see that there are projects for the next 5 fiscal years. And as we go through each year, we're going to continue to update, and with feedback from the council, we'll figure out what to prioritize and make sure that at the end of the day, our department heads and the city is contemplating and planning for multi-year projects and not just doing things as they kind of come up on an emergency basis. With that, I am going to turn it over to folks from the Collins Center to walk through the presentation that we have provided. I know there's some AV usage that we'll be including, and there is a packet that I believe that you all have. And with that, I will ask the folks from the Collins Center to come on up. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, members of the Revere community. My name is Monica Lamboy. I'm a senior associate at the Edward J. Collins Jr. Center for Public Management at UMass Boston. I'm here with my colleague, Tony Teresi. We've been working with the city for a number of years now on a capital improvement plan. We had an iteration before you, I believe in 2015, that did not get all the way through the process. I will say I think this is a even more comprehensive look and a more substantial look at the needs of the community. What is a capital project? Capital projects are one-time expenses or infrequent expenses on major pieces of infrastructure, roads, sewer systems, vehicles, equipment. They should have a lifetime of at least 5 years, and oftentimes $10,000 or $15,000 minimum, but it's not a required, but it's a substantial investment. What is a capital plan? A capital plan puts all of these needs together, looks at the resources that are available, and makes strategic decisions about where to invest in the community. And as the mayor mentioned, it's a 5-year plan, so it gives yourselves, it gives the department heads, it gives the community the ability to look out forward. Many large projects, whether it's a big roadway project or a new building, takes multiple years to get from design, from concept to design to construction, and having a 5-year plan lets you get those pieces in place and started. Why would we do a capital plan? First of all, there's benefits in terms of costs. By being strategic, being thoughtful, we can minimize the impact on debt. We can try to get the best prices. We can avoid emergency purchases to the extent possible. As we all know with our homes, if you let the roof deteriorate and you have to get somebody out on the weekend to do work, it's much more costly than if you've gone ahead and ideally addressed it before it became an issue. What are the downsides of not investing in capital? First, studies have shown that for every dollar spent in preventative maintenance on buildings, $2 are saved. So by maintaining our buildings, by doing the investments early that are needed to maintain them, we avoid catastrophic failures. We've also seen studies that show that students that are studying in good quality buildings have higher test scores. So not investing in our school facilities will actually influence test scores. And there's some more statistics on that sheet. This next graphic speaks to facilities and the deterioration curve. You can see the condition is on the left and the years across the bottom. So in its initial year, any kind of building is in excellent condition. And as we move forward, the condition starts to deteriorate. If you address it early on, it's a very low cost, 20 cents per square foot to maintain. As the condition deteriorates further and further, we're looking at a multiplier effect where items become much more expensive to build a new or to do a wholesale renovation. About Revere. Revere has significant infrastructure, 13 city buildings, 10 school sites, more than 20 parks and playgrounds, over 300 IT users, 117 miles of public and private roads, sanitary sewer, storm drains, et cetera. The process that we followed, we started initially in 2015 receiving requests from departments. Those were updated in 2017 to the extent that needs had changed. were reviewed and evaluated by us independently using a score system that looks at best practices. We did a financial analysis and identified projects. In the interim, the City Council took a number of really significant steps, positive steps for capital investment. You established a capital stabilization fund that allows you to track and to put aside funds for capital. You adopted a policy to deposit at least 20% of free cash into the capital stabilization fund, really making sure that capital is in the forefront. You seeded the fund with $1 million and have engaged in a really important study of the DPW facility. Overall, we received $131 million of requests for capital improvements. I will point out that the sewer is, I believe, about $89 million of that. We have not included sewer in the capital plan before you, since you are working with a separate consultant on that effort. Obviously, it's a tremendous need, but even without the sewer included, we're looking at $142 million of capital requests. This is the request by funding type, and Tony's going to get into it a little bit more deeply. General fund debt is what you did this evening with the fire truck. General fund pay-as-you-go is paying for it up front with no interest charges. Water and sewer enterprise. Chapter 90 is the roadway grant monies provided by the state, and MSBA stands for the Massachusetts School Building Authority, which offers matching grant funds for a number of different kinds of school projects. These are the criteria that we used to review it, and we'll move on to the resources that were identified.
Good evening, councilors. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. My name is Tony Teresi. As was mentioned earlier, I'm with the Collins Center. What I'd like to briefly go through is just a quick explanation of the kind of the fundability of the program. And in your package is a chart that just kind of outlines the how the money is going to be utilized to fund the program. And we've tied the program into developing a policy of 4% investment in your capital projects. Very reasonable amount of money to be set aside. This program does not require additional funding through Prop 2.5 debt exclusions or anything to that effect. It falls within your existing guidelines. And perhaps the most interesting takeaway on this slide is the section that's highlighted in gray, and it really talks about the amount of money we have. That's not project money. These are the costs that you would annually appropriate to accomplish the full $30+ million that are being recommended for the program. The second slide is a little bit more detail, and as Monica mentioned, it describes kind of where the money's coming from. The first two columns are really commitments you've already made. So as you can see, you've invested significantly in capital projects through bonding. That's called debt service. You have some additional ones that you've already authorized. They are not excluded from this plan. You've already made a commitment to move forward with that. It's important to cost out what that debt service may look like. At this point, they're estimates. Again, probably the critical thing to focus on in this is the the section in the middle of the slide. That's FY 2018 to FY 22. It's not in your... okay. It's up there. It's not on the screen? That's it. Excuse me for that. Thank you. I mentioned earlier that the available amount of money is in excess of $5 million, but this middle section tells you where that money is coming from, and you've already established a very well thought out plan in terms of capital stabilization, and this utilizes that plan and continues that process where the council will make appropriations to the capital stabilization fund. In addition, one thing we have recommended in many of our assignments and continue to recommend is that it's important to also have within your regular operating budget an amount set aside for capital projects. Projects that you really don't want to, that kind of pay as you go. You have a regular source of funding. So as you can see, there's a column here where we're gradually rationing up your annual appropriation. Very doable considering the amount of new growth that the community is recognizing, and will still recognize for the foreseeable future in excess of $1 to $1.5 million in new tax revenue. And as I mentioned, the council has already established a very sound financial policy of making appropriations to the Capital Stabilization Fund. This chart simply shows how that continues, and that based upon the plan that's being presented, your process on funding the Capital Stabilization Fund fits very well into the funding of this capital improvement program. Finally, in your detail CIP program, and I know you've had other discussions about the alternatives of the DPW plan, we simply want to mention that of the two alternatives that we know are being discussed, the one-phase approach versus the three-phase approach, both of those programs fit well within the funding availability in this 5-year plan. The difference is in terms of the cost of the project, the total bonding amount for the 1 year versus the phased-in approach. So you can see the phased-in approach, although it costs less in the early years, is significantly more expensive in the long run because of the extra cost of the project and then the interest costs associated with that. So at least these are early estimates, but it's roughly $22 million in total for the one-phase approach and $25 million for the three-phase approach. But again, it fits well within the 5-year plan that's being presented in the capital improvement program.
Thank you, Tony. Before going into the fun part, which is what do we get to purchase with it, just want to really highlight a couple of things that Tony said first. With the multi-pronged general fund funding approach, it provides a really solid foundation to do the ambitious program that is before you, using the free cash, using the new appropriation, and using the debt service that's dropping off and reinvesting it back in capital. Those are all really best practices. The other really important thing is the projects that we're going to talk about briefly all work with either of the two DPW alternatives that are before you. The mayor and the financial team and our group really worked hard to make sure that that was the case. There will need to be a few modifications, but overall they all work. So what are we talking about in terms of projects in this capital plan? We're talking about $11 million of debt-funded projects, nearly $2 million of general fund pay-as-you-go projects, some small contribution from the water sewer enterprise, basically matches on some of the DPW equipment, nearly $4 million of Chapter 90, MSBA, and grants and other. Overall, the general fund is funding just approximately half of this plan. So half are coming from resources outside of the city's general fund. And hats off to the staff for being able to identify those resources and work with us on this. This pie chart here shows, again, what I just said, which is about half of the proposed projects are funded by the general fund and half from an array of non-general fund sources. The next table is funding by department. We can see the schools are getting a substantial investment. The finance department is really not the finance department. It's a catch holder for investments in City Hall and in the McKinley building. Healthy Communities Initiative has some significant amounts of dollars, as you can see. So by asset type, it's actually quite interesting that we can see that the investment is very balanced across different asset types, from facilities to roads and sidewalks and to equipment and to schools. It's a very balanced plan. Okay, so here's some of the fun projects, and I'm happy to answer questions about any of them. Some of the largest projects include fire equipment and an investment in the Point of Pines facility. I know it was mentioned that the $1 million is probably not enough that we have in here, but it's certainly a large share to get that facility up and running. Parks and Recreation, parks facilities, $1.4 million. Only a few specific parks are mentioned in the plan. Instead, what we've created is a sort of seed money for study of parks so that the city and the community can identify where you want to do the investments. And then we've put monies in to leverage, to use to secure state grants and other grants, knowing that there's a city investment, and matching that with the state grants makes the dollars go much farther. Over $500,000 to be invested in bicycle, pedestrian, streetscapes, and the staircases. This is going to be spread out across 5 years to allow a really thoughtful approach to, multi-year approach to making those kinds of improvements. Tree planting, $200,000. In terms of roads and sidewalks, one thing I think really stands out for this plan is not only are we building it around the state grant monies called Chapter 90, this plan even puts general fund dollars into roads and sidewalks over $800,000, which is basically in the 5-year period. So will actually be 6 years worth of dollars invested into the roads because the general fund allocation is equal to 1 year of the grant monies. That's going to be a perceptible difference, I think, to the public when they get to there. And then school boilers, windows, roofs, et cetera. And then there's a number of other small projects as well. So with that, I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions from any councilors? Council Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. You just, did I hear you right when you said over the 5 years, $800,000 over and above the Chapter 90 money?
Yes, so the Chapter 90 money over the 5 years is just about $4 million. In this plan, we've built in an allocation of general fund dollars, about $800,000.
Okay. And the other thing I heard you mention about the Point of Pines Fire Station, Alden Mills Fire Station, I am very grateful for any resources that are put into getting that fire station operational. However, I don't know if you took into consideration the fact that some of the newer apparatus that is coming online now through other cities and towns would not, that station would not accommodate them. And the other thing too is if you sat through the meeting tonight, you heard about all of the development going on Revere Beach Boulevard and Ocean Avenue and throughout the city. And my feeling has always been that somewhere down the road, we may have to put a larger piece of apparatus, maybe a ladder into that station. Not tomorrow, not the next day, but down the road, to provide the public safety aspect to the residents that live in the Point of Pines, but and the Boulevard also, and Ocean Avenue, where we're building a lot of 5-story buildings now. And a lot of those buildings, most of those buildings, if not all, are wood construction. And I think it's of paramount importance that we have a piece of apparatus that can satisfy the public safety needs of the people that will be residing in those buildings as they are built up. There's still properties on the Boulevard that are going to be built. We all know that. As a matter of fact, I have a late motion going in tonight to rezone the RC1 district from Oak Island down to 560 Revere Beach Boulevard to confine it to 6-story construction, because I think it should be in conformity with the other buildings down there. There are a lot of single-family residences down there, and the beach house, which was brought up tonight, that's 5 floors of living space, and I think it just would be nice to have that flow continue. But again, I know that getting back to the fire station, I know that we've had some engineering people look at that. There was a problem with the roof that wasn't replaced in so many years and has allowed the water to seep into the brickwork. And, when water freezes, what happens, it expands out, and these are problems. So, again, I'm very grateful to the mayor and to the Collins Center for that recommendation, but I would like to honestly see it go a little further. Thank you.
Through the chair. The way we've structured the project, in fiscal 2019, there's $100,000 invested in this question, and you had a lot of really good technical questions about the size, the equipment or apparatus at that location. I think that $100,000 will be able to get you a really tremendous analysis to consider what the future is if you are not able to identify resources even earlier. There is $100,000 to start with to ask those questions, and then because it's a little further out in the plan, there's time to build that investment in that's right-sized for the solution for the location.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other council wishing to speak? Councilor Rotunda?
Thank you. I will have to say, I did read this. It's very well prepared. We should follow the expertise that's provided to us. I applaud the mayor for pushing this forward, and I think if we don't follow it, we'd be foolish. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you for your presentation. Very nice. Appreciate it. Back to regular business, please. Oh, this would be placed on file, communications. Placed on file.
Next item on the agenda is the Appointments Subcommittee report.
Mr. Vice President, earlier this afternoon, the Appointment Subcommittee met. We had 4 applicants for various positions before us. The first being a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of John Lopes, to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Mr. Mayor, don't leave. We might want you to swear in, we might want you to make arrangement to swear in the 2 new appointees to the Board of Appeals based on the fact that the chairperson has recommended that we get that done before Wednesday. So you can make arrangements with them. Thank you, sir. And next, we had communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Arthur Pelton to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And Arthur is going to be an alternate on that particular board. And then we had communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Robert Bent to the Commission of Disabilities. And then finally, we had the appointment of Vanessa Biasella to Revere Cultural Council. The appointment subcommittee met and we voted out favorably all 4 requests. I asked that the city council take up all requests at once. If there's any objection, we can take that one up separately. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
So motion to approve all 4 appointments. All in favor?
Council President, I accidentally skipped ahead on the agenda. We need to take up unfinished business. Calendar item number 12, communication from the mayor relative to the adoption of the eligibility factor for clause 41C.5 for residents aged 65 and older.
Mr. Mayor?
Good evening, Mr. Vice President. As the council is well aware, as you all know, earlier this year, the voters of the city of Revere adopted or allowed the city to provide a 10% residential tax exemption to our seniors. This final vote of the council is a formality to allow for the adoption of the age eligibility, which would be 65 and over. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Thank you.
Any questions? Motion to approve? Oh, sorry, roll call.
Mr. Vice President, bear in mind, we only have 7 members present, so this is do we need 8 votes or we need 6? Simple majority. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, simple majority? That's what the law says. Okay, thank you. Roll call.
Shall the City Council adopt the eligibility factor for Massachusetts General Laws, Clause 41C1/2 for residents aged 65 and older? Counselor Janino?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Morabito?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Novoselsky is absent. Counselor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Zambudo is absent. And Council Vice President Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, the clause has been adopted. And calendar item number 13, communication from the city engineer requesting funding for construction material disposal.
Yes. The reason for this request is because there was a water project that was covered by the MWRA funds. However, the portion that was not covered was the amount of $160,000 for disposal of the debris that they took out while they were doing the evacuation and excavation and the work at this site, at these sites, various sites. So what we're looking for from the City Council tonight is I just want to correct the language of this communication. It's not an authorization, it's not asking for a transfer, it's asking for an additional appropriation from the Water and Sewer Fund to the project account, which is on the communication. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any councils wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none. George, I just had one question. So from my understanding is this is soil and contaminants in the ground that have to be disposed of properly?
That's correct.
That's where the extra funding is?
That's right.
So obviously, this is something that we have to do, we're gonna have to pay for, and it's not cheap, we all understand that. My only curiosity is, and I'm not, and pardon me, I'm not very familiar with the project or what the project was, but is there any way for us to go back and find out who the contaminee was, and maybe?
No, you can't do it at that time because it's from areas from all over the city.
Okay.
Or what may the reason for the contamination or the type of debris it is. So it's not something that we can go back and do. You can't do some sort of forensic study about whether or not who contaminated the dirt, but we just know it was contaminated and has to be disposed in a certain way.
Understood. I appreciate that. Thanks for the feedback. All right, roll call? Actually, we're going to have to table this. We only have 7 councilors left tonight. 2, 4, 6. Oh. Scratch that. We're going to need 6. Roll call.
Shall the City Council approve a transfer from the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund to project account 43081-580000 in the amount of $160,000? Counselor Janino?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Morabito?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Novoselsky is absent. Counselor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Zambudo is absent. And Council Vice President Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, the transfer has been approved. Just to clarify for the residents, that is an additional appropriation and not a transfer.
It's art, man.
Thank you, councilors.
Madam Clerk?
I've been informed by Mayor Rigo that we need to take an additional vote for the 41C1/2 exemption clause. The request would be increasing the exemption from 5% up to, it's going to be 10%, and that would require a roll call vote.
Take the roll. Mr. Mayor, can you elaborate on the 41C vote?
So the vote that was taken allowed for the eligibility to be brought down to 65 and older. There needs to be an additional vote taken by the city council to allow us to give a 10% residential tax exemption to seniors. The state law, the minimum is 5%, but we can go up to 10% if there's a vote of the council to do that, and that's what we're requesting.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Shall the city council adopt the, excuse me. Shall the city council allow the increase of exemption percentage up to 10% in regards to the 41C&1/2 exemption? Councilor Janino?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morabito?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky is absent. Councilor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Zambudo is absent. And Council Vice President Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, the percentage increase has been approved. On to motions. Calendar item number 19, motion presented by Councilor Novoselsky. The mayor requests National Grid to increase the street light wattage to 400 watts on 2 Cobra lights on pole 4316-1 and the Shirley Ave Municipal Parking Lot. The pole feeds from pole number 4316 at 64 DeHone Street.
And Councilor Novoselsky was asked that we take up his motions tonight. So, Councilor Rotundo?
Motion to approve.
Any councilors? Motion to approve? Approve. So moved.
Calendar item number 20, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo that HYM obtain a project labor agreement for any development at Suffolk Downs. Further, that the mayor look into the feasibility of providing a TIF for the Suffolk Downs project to ensure competitiveness regarding Amazon.
Speaks for itself.
Motion to approve?
Calendar item number 21, motion presented by Councilor Keefe that the mayor requests the Traffic Commission to transition the McKinley School lot into a municipal parking lot to support local businesses and alleviate parking needs throughout the winter.
Any councilors? Permission to speak from the chair? Real brief. We obviously witnessed tonight the need for parking, and we have an empty lot that I don't see why it's close to the downtown district of Revere, and it's unused. So if we're looking to put any revenue into repaving or restriping it, I don't think it would be too much to ask. I think the city should do it. It would help the residents. It would help, especially during the winter months when people struggle to park on the streets. And I've gotten a lot of feedback from local residents that they would love to see that happen. And I'm sure the businesses would thrive a little bit more with that, especially a new restaurant opening up on Broadway in Yeaman soon.
I don't know if it's possible. There is some space in the back, off of that matter in the front. A lot of the kids during the day, I'm sure we all see them, they go in there and play basketball. Maybe there's a way that we can kind of fence off an area and put up hoops. If there's an area in the front that's not being utilized, just so that they can play there. It'd take a bobcat to just go over it.
On a side note, there's some grant money that's already been approved to refurbish the courts, and that's something that we're working on. It wasn't able to get done before the summer, so we're looking at doing it during the spring.
Excellent, thank you.
All right? Motion to approve.
Calendar item number 22, motion presented by Councilor Keefe that the mayor request the Traffic Commission to install a permanent traffic signal speed reader on Park Ave to help reduce speeding on Park Ave.
Any councilors? I just want to point out, again, speaking from the chair, that I've addressed Park Ave speeding since I've been a councilor, and I'd like to have some support from the mayor's office with this in the DPW or whatever departments need to, public safety need to get involved. And this has also been approved by the mayor of Park Ave, Mr. Pantano. Motion to approve.
Point of information.
State your point.
You didn't stick Mr. Arthur Pantano on the mayor, did you?
I didn't have to. Mr. Mayor.
I will proudly say that whenever I drive down Park Ave and I see Mr. Pantano, or if I'm running Park Ave, which I did see him over the summer, and he was a little flabbergasted to see me. We always talk about these issues, and Council, I understand your point, and we'll do our best to address the issue.
Appreciate the support. Thank you.
Calendar item number 23, motion presented by Councilor Keefe, that the mayor utilize the funds available to install security cameras at Harry De La Russo Stadium as originally submitted in the construction project's budget and plans.
Speaks for itself. Motion to approve.
Calendar item number 24, motion presented by Councilor McKenna, that the mayor request the DPW during the months of October and November to have a city dump truck follow the street sweeper to collect the leaves. With the current arrangement, the street sweeper must drive off route to dump the leaves in a truck located in another area of the city.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. So last Monday, we had street sweeping, and we had a problem with the street sweeper because he kept on, he didn't pick up the leaves, and the reason why is because the dump truck wasn't following him because a lot of people were on vacation. So I'm just asking for next year, because street sweeping is over, Monday, if a dump truck could follow the street sweeper and dump, so they don't have to go to a designated, leave their spot and go to a designated spot to dump the leaves. Thank you.
Any other councilors? Motion to approve? Good motion, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Great motion. Thank you. Motion to approve?
Calendar item number 25, motion presented by Councilors Rotundo, Patch, Janino, and Keefe, that the mayor request the Traffic Commission to make Asti Ave a local access street during certain hours of the day decided upon by the residents of Asti Ave. Further, that this request be expedited once enacted by the council. Additionally, that once enacted signage and an officer posted on Asti Avenue for enforcement and education to the public within 30 days or less.
Councilor Rotundo.
I think it speaks for itself, even though it's a mouthful.
Councilor Janino, or Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I think that this is a very necessary motion, and my only recommendation is that we can consider Green Tree Lane as well, which I know my colleague, Councilor Rotundo, had brought up. This originally started with some emails from a constituent that observed the backup of traffic on this street, and I know Sergeant Janino and the traffic department's been working on this as well with the residents down there. So I think that with some collaboration from the council as well as the neighborhood, we can come to a conclusion and kind of figure out what the best option is. But it's kind of hard to just tackle Asti Ave and not talk about Green Tree Lane, because when they're cutting through, they're hitting both streets. Thank you.
Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. This is a great idea, but as we know, all the traffic, I think Councilor Tunnels and the people that requesting this during the afternoon rush hour, when which the rush hour now for Route 1 seems to be like starting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And what they're doing is they're coming down the off-ramp, and they're either going left to go down Green Tree and cut through Asti to get to Malden Street, or they go right to go to cut through Everett and Malden. I don't see a remedy here for the immediate area surrounding these streets. I think it's going to have to, a study really is going to have to be done to see where these cars are going to go. And it's all fair and good to say you're going to have a police officer there for 30 days, but, after that, I wish we could come up with a better solution, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you. I think Councilor Patch is 100% correct, and I should have probably elaborated it. The reason to have the police officer there for a period of time is one of the things is when you make traffic changes like that, in particular like off of Park Avenue, when you turn one street to a one-way. The people that are in the area don't realize it, or people who normally take that pathway don't realize it because A, they don't live in the city, or B, they don't live in the area. And it would only be a temporary basis, but you're right, Charlie, we have to think a little bit more about this.
Thank you, George. If I could, one other,
Councilor Patch, state your vote.
People got to be aware that this problem is created mainly from the people that live north of us, it's not local residents that are really using this cut through. So, again, I really wish we could come up with a better remedy, but that'd be up to the Traffic Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Motion to approve. Madam Clerk, may I suspend the rules real briefly? I'd like to see if, actually, I didn't recognize we were going to swear them in tonight. If we could invite the two appointees up to be sworn real quickly, as I know that they've been waiting patiently.
Well, please raise your right hand and repeat after me using your own name after I say aye. I
John Lopes.
solemnly swear.
Yes.
Say it. Solemnly swear.
Solemnly, I apologize.
No problem.
Solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully and impartially
And I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon me
all the duties incumbent upon me
as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals,
as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals,
agreeably to the rules and regulations
agreeable to the rules and regulations
of the Constitution and laws of the Commonwealth.
and the constitutions of the laws of the Commonwealth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, guys. Sign this one, too.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That was off memory by Madam Clerk. That was pretty good. Impressive.
I got it down, guys. And
Good job. Go ahead.
just date and sign.
27. November. I'm writing
And then when I see you guys on Wednesday, usually come into my office before you go upstairs for the hearing. I just have a packet to give you guys for new appointees.
which is
The city clerk's office.
city clerk. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Oh, just write a ZBA right next to it, John.
Oh.
Yeah. That's my understanding. You're going to be the alternate, so please just write ZBA alternate. Just,
Right here.
yeah.
Okay.
Today's date?
Yeah, it's 27.
The 27th? Yeah.
Okay.
Madam Clerk.
Thanks, Mama.
I'm going to take up the next motion. Madam Clerk, thank you. Welcome back.
Calendar item number 26, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo, that the mayor request the chief of police to investigate how allegedly 3 level 3 sex offenders are living in the same house on Sears Street. Further, that a letter be sent to our state delegation to change the current Massachusetts general law that demands lifetime parole for level 3 sex offenders, as well as a known affiliation clause. In addition, that the city's website provide a link to the SORB.
Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you. I'm a little perplexed that 3 level 3 sex offenders can live in the same house, 50 feet behind Sullivan Park, 100 feet from a daycare center, 1,500 feet from the Paul Revere School, and yet convicted felons for murder, for rape, for bank robbery, or being a mafioso, cannot associate with each other as felons. Yet we have 3 level 3 sex offenders living in a property on Sears Street. It is beyond comprehension. Unfortunately, the law was overturned by the ACLU through the courts several years back, in I believe 2014. It was challenged in Lynn regarding the distance on a residency law. This is what happens when that takes place, when people don't think of the consequences. These three-level 3 sex offenders, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Coco, and I want to thank him for bringing that to my attention. All 3 were children under 14, pedophiles, scumbags. I don't like to hold my words on these people. And as far as I'm concerned, why is the legislature not acting upon this? Why aren't they making the law to incorporate lifetime parole for these people? Why is it that a handful of lawyers at the State House hold everybody else to this type of behavior? This should not be. Mr. Mayor, I'm pleading with you and every counselor up here to ask the state legislature to change the law to incorporate lifetime parole, if it's not already there, and the ability to associate with pedophiles, if it's not already there. More importantly, I'd like the chief of police to investigate whether they appropriately filed out the documentation requisite to be in the city, and see if they're actually living there. A lot of times, from what I've done some research, is that they claim that as a place that they're living, and they're actually not, to evade detection and the police. Folks, think about this. My daughter used to play baseball, softball, right at Sullivan Park. That's scary. 3 of them just sitting there. There's a little pathway. It's dark. It's a wooden step that goes over the culvert, and their house is right there. Behind them, the street next to them, there's a litter of children's, girls, bicycles and helmets. I have to hold myself. I am so angry. These people are just despicable. There's no place for them on earth, in my mind. And so I can't not hold my words. They're scumbags, plain and simple. So I would hope that you would support me in this effort and excuse my vernacular tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rotundo. Any other councilors wishing to speak? Member of the audience wishing to speak?
Joe Coco, 36 Sayers Street. I had a piece of paper that I wanted to read, but it's like to no avail. I mean, I want to thank the mayor for cleaning every year I call John Powers and I call the mayor's office, and I get the weeds cleaned down at the end of my street, which is right by the footbridge, right by the baseball field, because we've had people living down there in tents. You remember this, John? Living down there in tents, people that were homeless. And when the kids were running around there, they were actually chasing them, telling them to get the hell out of there. Now, we have level three, not level 1s or 2s, level 3. One, who I was told, I have some good information, that has been convicted 4 times. 4 times. There is, in my mind, there's no place on earth for these guys. Drop them off on an island somewhere, not in front of my house. I have 6 grandchildren. I know many of you have grandchildren and children, friends that have children. These guys, what are they doing together? Planning on their next victim? I mean, come on. We got 3 of them together. And I'm looking on the computer, and it says the chances of a level 3 sex offender offending again is like 95%. So we got them living on Sayers Street. Now, I know there was a couple on Revere Street, one. Maybe every so often you would find one there, here and there. But we got 3 living together. What state is allowing 3-level sex offenders to live together. You can't get 3 bank robbers living together. I'm just standing before you that maybe we can set a precedent in Revere. Maybe we can send something to the State House saying, this ain't gonna go. Do you know how many kids in the summertime I see past my doorway going to the footbridge to go over to the beach? Do you know how many kids play in the Little League Park, which is right next to them? There's no way they should have been allowed to buy that house in that area. And I'm not saying because it's across from me, because I seen them look eyeing kids the other day. The nice day we had, 60-degree weather. I seen them eyeing them walking by. I want to go, I yelled at one of them, he ran in the house. I want to go over there with a hammer, but I know I'm going to end up in jail. I mean, come on, realistically, we're not talking about a bank robber, we're not talking a guy that went in Walgreens with a gun. We're talking about the lowest of all lowest, a child molester, under 14 years of age. Who knows how old they were? Maybe 3 years old, maybe 4 that they molested. Who knows? I can't get that information. Maybe somebody here can. But I'm asking the mayor, I'm asking all you people, for the sake of Revere, for the sake of Revere's children, for the sake of the children that come in here during the summer, 3 of them living together? That's unheard of. I can't believe it. I see them going to work. Do you know what I go through every morning? I see them going to work and coming from work. Supposedly, that's where they're going. They got a trailer parked by their house. Who knows, there might be some kid in that trailer. We read about it every day. We read about it every day. We do. All of us. We read about this stuff every day. Yet I got it right across the street from me. Level 3 sex offenders. Not 1, not 2, but 3. All convicted of similar crimes. And they're living together. What are they doing? Playing checkers? Are they playing chess together? Are they planning on their next day at work? Are they planning a nice day out to eat? No. They're planning on their next victim. And that you can take to the bank. That's all I have to say. Shame on this city if we can't do something about it.
Eric Lampedecchio, 43 Tapley Avenue. I got a phone call from a friend that lives over on Bay Road, and she was absolutely mortified when she got not only 1, but 3 notifications of 3 level 3 sex offenders living in the same residence. I'd like to commend Councilor Rotundo for taking up this motion, and I ask that you vote on it favorably. Thank you.
Council Powers.
Thank you, Mr. President. I certainly, first of all, I want to commend Councilor Rotundo for putting this motion before us. I have had calls myself from residents down there. And when I did have the calls, I've contacted Chief Guido and I believe Captain Mangini, and the officers did, to their credit, and their hands are just as tied as ours are. We can request the state government, the Speaker, Governor Baker, to perhaps draft some legislation that would prevent this from reoccurring in Revere and perhaps occurring in any other city or town in the Commonwealth, because it just doesn't make sense to me. But I do want to commend Sean Randall and Captain Mangini for going down to the neighborhood and making sure that all of the residents down there were notified. And until something is done, I would caution all of the residents down there to beware, keep an eye on your children. And this is not something that they should have to worry about, but is a fact of life right now. And it's unfortunate, but everyone has to be more vigilant with regard to these individuals and keeping an eye on the children in that neighborhood. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilors? I commend Councilor Rotundo as well for bringing this forth, and It's the unfortunate side of this is where the system fails us and fails the average Joe, and unfortunately, lawyers protect the criminals more than they protect the innocent people out there, and this is a problem, and I hope that this does reach the state delegation and our representation, so that this something can be done about this, you know. Councilor Rotundo?
Thank you, and through you to the mayor, and I hate to put you on the spot, even though I like your socks tonight. That said, do we currently, because I had asked for it, and I don't know if it was implemented or if it's not allowed, but are we sending out, so in Florida and other states, what they do is they send out a letter with level 3 sex offenders, and I'm not sure if we can do it with level 2, 300 feet surrounding the property. If we're not currently do that, I mean, for a cheap amount of money, we'd be the first one in the state to do it, I believe. And I think that would be.
In this instance, everyone in the area was notified. I did speak to Chief Guido earlier tonight, actually, and he was in touch with the Sex Offender Registry Board about what we can do to make sure that we're doing the correct thing and that we're notifying folks and that everyone knows in any neighborhood where these individuals may be living. And I, wholeheartedly agree with the fact that as father of 2 young boys, obviously, we oftentimes can think personally about situations. It puts a new perspective, certainly, on individuals that could do something like that, especially level 3 sex offenders. At a minimum, we need to make sure that our residents know where they are and if they're living in our neighborhoods.
With that said, I just hope that we can forward to the state delegation a request to change the law so that we have lifetime parole. And I do want to make this clear, because I don't want people to think that it's only these people. People have to understand that it's a very sad statistic. You are correct, Joe. It's almost 90% for recidivism rate for level 3 sex offenders. And sadly enough, the majority of children that are molested or raped in this country, raped by someone they know. So this, if you got a moment, talk to your children. Set boundaries. Look at the SORB, the sex offender website. They give you tools to teach your children how to basically avoid people like that, but more importantly, if God forbid something happens, how to talk to you and how to let you know so that doesn't happen again. So we have a responsibility to ensure that we protect you. We'll do everything we can. And at this point, I leave that up to the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilor. Motion to approve? Motion approved.
Calendar item number 27, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo, that the City Council present Wayne Rose with a certificate of appreciation for starting Safe Saturdays for our youth.
Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you. I think this is a great thing what Wayne did. I want to recognize him and commend him for doing it. And I hope that you support me in this effort. Thank you.
Any other councilors? Motion to approve?
Late motion presented by Councilor Guanasso, that the City Council award certificates of appreciation to the Squad B Pop Warner football team for winning the Greater Boston League Division Championship, the Eastern Massachusetts Championship, and runners-up at the New England Super Bowl Championship.
Very briefly, Mr. Vice President, as you're well aware, that they did a wonderful job in representing the city of Revere throughout all the events. And I want to give recognition to these young men for the job well done. And certainly we want to add I was asked to add that the cheerleaders be also added on to this particular motion. But the B squad, and by the way, I had the pleasure of sponsoring that team. And that's not the reason they're getting notification of this great award. I'm just so proud of each and every one of them for the wonderful job they did for us.
Thank you, Council. Any other councils? I may add that there was many city council and city representatives that sponsored the league, and as I speak unbiasedly, I'm the president of the organization, but there is no financial gain here, so I was told I have permission to speak, but They did a phenomenal job, and I look forward to having them up in the council chambers for their accommodation or appreciation. Thank you. All in favor? So moved. This closes our...
One last.
We have a
late motion.
late motion.
This is from Councilor Powers, that the mayor instruct the city planner to prepare a zoning amendment to the RC1 district along Revere Beach Boulevard from Oak Island Street north to 580 Revere Beach Boulevard to a new zoning district with allowable building heights not to exceed 60 feet and 6 stories, as opposed to the existing zoning district, which allows heights of up to 120 feet and 13 stories. This zoning change is necessary to bring into compliance the height and scale of buildings with this predominantly residential area and to provide a transition and building scale to the existing RA single-family district.
Councilor Powers, would you recommend this go to zoning subcommittee?
Thank you, Mr. President. I think the motion is very clear. It would prevent any more high-rise buildings from being built anywhere from Oak Island Street, north on the Boulevard, down to the area around Beach House. We could keep everything in some conformity with what is constructed down there with the local residents. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Council Powers. So I'm going to request that this go to zoning subcommittee. All in favor? So moved. And motion to adjourn. Have a great night.